I'm Marie Vigourou.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And this is Rude Eats, a delicious podcast where we sink our teeth into every episode of the show Hannibal.
My friends call me a killer if you're still hanging around. You spread all of these rumors that I am the guy who did all of these crimes. I thought you wanted me better, someone you wouldn't use. You said he must be a killer, so now when we talk I have anger issues. You said there's no encephalitis. Now we're knee deep in my broken psyche and you're eating my friend. You're a cannibal now. What me were you feeding to me at your dinner party? I'm a cannibal now. All I needed was a friend. Hannibal, you're a cannibal. How? Don't even try to pretend. Hey Hannibal, where's Abigail now? I know it's really Hannibal and you frame me for murder and feed me in the ear. I know it's really Hannibal and you smell my name right next to the ear. You could have been a real friend that taught me all about who I am. I thought you were a real friend, but honestly you're not. Knee deep in my broken psyche and you're eating my friend. Hug me or you're fitting to me at our dinner parties. All I needed was a friend. Don't even try to pretend. You fucked with my head and blame it on the fever. You suspect really up, you wonder why I let her back into our friends. You got me and I did it. I had to tell the truth and I both know you did it. I hate how that you changed me so much. I question myself. I hate how that you changed me so much. You can go to hell.
Mary, you were right
And at what cost?
about so
What
many
cost?
things. I have been just fully tortured on this podcast, as listeners have known for a long time, but you are now just getting exposed to. Just fully fucking tortured on this podcast. Just not, as you say things, just having to like quietly bite my tongue and be like, yes, that is a very good observation.
There's a couple of things that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I predicted that. Like, and also, I guess we should mention that we actually watched this episode with people from the server, from the Rude Eats server. And when we were watching, the chat was kind of going crazy. And I couldn't pay attention to both what was going on screen and the chat. But I do remember seeing like some things where people were like, you predicted this, oh, you said this would happen, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's true, and I completely forgot about it. Anyway, yeah
You were absolutely right about Abigail. The funniest moment about this is you telling me that you thought that you would be angering the fandom at your prediction that Abigail was alive, and me just going, like, just tapping my fingers and just,
or maybe not, Mary, or maybe not.
yeah, maybe not. But we're here at the finale of season 2, arguably the best episode of Hannibal. I think there's still a lot of good stuff to come, but like this is such a huge climactic moment in the show that it's easy to see how this could have been a season finale or a series finale. And it's also,
for sure.
It's also interesting because the ending, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. Like, actually, the ending of this is actually kind of the beginning of Red Dragon, the book, which is just very amusing to me. So, I'm excited to talk about this one this week.
Oh, this is super exciting. Also, we do have a feedback episode coming up.
Yes.
So, if you want to yell about all of the things that I predicted, rightly or wrongly, please write in. So you can send us a message on Blue Sky. You can also email us, or you can join our Discord.
Yeah.
And just let us know.
There should be a link tree in the show notes that has all of those links so you can easily find us. Why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
All right, so today we are talking about Hannibal, season 2, episode 13, Mizumono, where Jack devises a plan to apprehend Hannibal while Hannibal prepares his departure. Will makes his decision, and it results in devastating consequences.
Okay.
Nowhere in the history of understatements has something been understated as much as this. This episode was directed by David Slade, written by Steve Lightfoot and Brian Fuller, and it aired on May 23rd, 2014.
Yes. And Mizumono, it's a dessert. It's the last course of Kasaki, which of course we've been dealing with the whole season long. And yeah, I'm kind of fascinated with this idea of the theme because it's a new word that I learned, and I want to get into it, but I want you to pronounce it for me because I've only ever read the word, so I'm sure that you can actually pronounce it correctly, whereas I'm not going to be able to.
Terroir.
See, I was going to be way off that.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
yeah. So this is Terroir, and it's essentially the definition is the complete natural environment in which a particular wine is produced, including factors such as the soil, topography, and climate. So, like, this idea, I read about it in a horror novel that I was reading, and it was basically this concept of this person's life, like having every aspect of his life culminating to a particular moment. And of course we were kind of in the middle of season 2. We may have just finished the previous episode. I'm not sure when I was reading this, but it was kind of right towards the end, and I was thinking a lot about Mizumono, and I was just thinking a lot about how this episode very specifically, like everything that's come before it, like leads into this. Like we're going to go all the way back to season 1, episode 1 in this episode. And we're going to reach back, and like everything that happens is dependent upon the metaphorical soil, the metaphorical topography, the metaphorical climate of everybody and everybody's existence inside of it. So I'm just kind of fascinated with this idea.
I mean, it's really interesting because in French, like it's a word that you use often, right? Les produits du terroir, like the products of the land, because that's what terroir actually means. So if we go into the etymology, it comes from Latin territorium, which means land. So it's, I don't know. I just find it fascinating that like this would come up in a horror novel. Like I absolutely love that, and it's so fit for what we're talking about today. So when we're talking about terroir and the soil, topography, and climate, like think of like the very specific taste and flavor of a wine, for example, that's kind of given to it by its environment, the environment in which it's produced. You can also talk about terroir when talking about like cheese or single malt whiskey or coffee, for example, and it's basically the basis for appellation d'origine contrôlée, AOC, which is like controlled. Like think of champagne, right? The best example for that is champagne. Like it's the whole, like it's only champagne if it comes from the French region of Champagne. Otherwise, it's just sparkling wine.
Yes.
And I know the different versions that have to do with sparkling anxiety and whatnot, but like that's basically what terroir means and AOC means. But there are also AOCs on like cheese, spirits, honey, peppers, a bunch of other stuff where like if you call something champagne, that it means that it is from that particular region. If you call cheese Roquefort, then it means that it's from that particular town. And yeah, I think like the fact that it has to do with the land and like the factors that like some are within human control, right? But some are completely out of it. And all of these factors like come together to create this very specific food product that cannot be replicated anywhere else. Like, and of course, when we're talking about that, obviously, like all I can think about is like fate and circumstance, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the line that Hannibal reads or Hannibal says in the show of fate and circumstances brought us back here again.
Yeah.
Shout out.
I'm going to push back against that because like freaking Hannibal. Anyway.
And also shout out to the podcast, the Hannibal podcast,
Yes.
Fate and Circumstance, for naming themselves Fate and Circumstance. That was very good.
What a good name, honestly.
Yeah, I just find this concept because it's brand new to me, not knowing it from the French, and then the idea of it of not just like where we get to with these characters, but like where each individual character lands, right? Like if you look at the ending of this, where Alana is, where Jack is, where Will is, where Surprise Abigail is, where Hannibal is, like all of our characters, like where they are, Bedelia even, like they're there for very specific reasons and decisions that they have made, and they could only be there because of those reasons and decisions. It's literally fate and circumstance, this terror.
Is it though, or is it Hannibal?
Well, I think it's both.
Yeah,
and I think that's going to be the fun thing to kind of peel away as we get into this episode. So, are you ready for our Beat by E?
No,
really.
But let's do it.
Not at all. Not in the least. So let's start out with Hannibal writing out an invitation to Jack to come to dinner, standing up and writing in the most perfect handwriting that I've ever seen.
So I just want to be a calligraphy nerd for a second, but like, so obviously, like we know that Hannibal has like, he writes in cursive, right? Because that's what he would have learned how to write in school. But what we're seeing on the invitation isn't like regular cursive that's taught in school, and it's not even his regular handwriting, as we're going to see later. It's copperplate, which he would have had to specifically learn as an adult because he liked it, and it's really hard to master. And so I love him. I love him.
This is one of the things that come from the books.
Really?
Yeah. So this is a thing that Hannibal does in the books, is that he writes in copperplate. This is like right up there with the 6 fingers on the left hand and the maroon eyes that like kind of makes him a little inhuman in the books, so to speak.
Really?
But the copperplate thing specifically, when we were doing the artwork for the podcast, I went to our mutual friend Katie, and I was like, and I think Autumn too, I was like, he writes in copperplate, so I want to try to find like a font that is like that copperplate to do root eats over the art that we've got. So like I kind of tried to replicate that a little bit. It's something that he would have had to, like, this is just him being extra, right? This is just Hannibal's extraness come to life, and I kind of love it. I'm
really happy that I clocked it then, if it's in the books.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Thanks for letting me know.
We're going to go back and forth in conversations here. Will is going to be having a conversation with Jack as well as Hannibal. And as Hannibal finishes writing it, Jack reads it to Will. And we go from that conversation to Will being kind of in therapy with Will, where Hannibal says that the chair that Will is sitting on has absorbed all of their conversations, what he calls the grunts and poetry of life.
Oh my God.
He says, "What do you hear?" And Will says, he hears a melody.
But that's kind of a lie, right? Because so when I rewatched it, I made sure I paused to my heart's content, because one of the things that I found really challenging in the live watch was that I usually pause when I watch Hannibal, and I couldn't pause, and all I could think of at some moments was just like pause. And so here I paused and I went back and I brought the volume up, and what you're hearing in the background is actually Hannibal's voice in Will's head.
Really?
Like, yes, you're actually hearing Hannibal's voice, like the past conversations that they've had in this moment. Like, the voice in his head is still Hannibal.
So you could kind of hear a whispering in the audio mix. Interesting, yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, Will, you're lying.
I was definitely going to mention this a little bit later, and I'll probably bring it up throughout the episode. But the audio mixing and the sound design on this episode is absolutely incredible. And it lends itself to just it makes the episode better without ever getting in the way of the episode, which is so impressive. One of my pet peeves nowadays are like needle drops moments. Comic book movies are really, really bad for this now. Thank you, Guardians of the Galaxy, for introducing everybody to this concept. But this just kind of bleeds in. The soundtrack to Hannibal often just bleeds into what's happening on the screen. Like it's because I think it's oftentimes recorded as they watch it, right? It's one of those like live recordings. And here we get this like kind of clock ticking stuff that's happening, which just like puts pressure on the situation, which obviously like kind of counts us down to a time bomb situation.
And I think it's also the fact that like it's not just recorded as they're watching; it's composed, specifically for it, right? Whereas like, and I assume that demands more time, more effort, more skill, also than just like putting Immigrant Song over Thor. Crashing the bridge, right? Like, which was a great needle drop, but also like, there you go.
It becomes less impactful every time you hear it, I think, which is the opposite of what I think that you want in a moment like this. Hannibal describes themselves as orchestrations of carbon, and Will says, not just you and me, but also Jack. And Hannibal further describes the scene as all of our destinies flying in blood and emptiness, which is like, out of context, this conversation is insane. Like, what are they talking about?
Yes, absolutely.
But also, the line are so beautiful. Like, I love this, like, all of our destinies flying in blood and emptiness. It's so pretty.
And I mean, if I understand correctly, they're basically plotting Jack's murder.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Because I for some reason, I only clocked that when I was rewatching it last night. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, this is the thing where, because we go back to the Jack conversation, and Jack says he's going to be wearing a wire. He's going to have snipers on rooftops. Will says he's going to try to kill you in the kitchen. The easier to prepare the tartar, I think he says. And then we switch to Will, who is telling Hannibal how hard Jack is going to be killed. Like, he's well trained, he's strong. He's like, you're going to have to take him by surprise. Like, Will is playing both sides of the line here, right? Like, we don't know which one he's relying upon.
How do you, so like, I know that we both know now how this ends, right? But like, well, not the whole thing, but like this particular season. But do you think whose side is Will actually on?
I think that's a great question. Because I think there's an argument to be made for both sides, and maybe we can get in depth on this during the kind of episode summary towards the end. But there's some things that signal to me that he genuinely wanted Hannibal to run, to not get caught. There's some signs to me that he wanted Hannibal to be caught, but he didn't want to be the person to catch him. Like, he didn't want to sacrifice his friendship in such a way. So it's really difficult for me to say outright, yes, he's 100% working for the FBI. He wants Hannibal caught, versus, he's 100% wanting to run away with Hannibal. I think that the very cool thing about this show and about this episode is it shows us that I don't think he necessarily knows.
I think that, to me, is really the takeaway, that he doesn't know. And that when he's with Jack, he wants Hannibal to get caught. And when he's with Hannibal, he wants Hannibal to run away. I think that this is because there are literally two wolves inside of Will Graham, right? Like, kind of like Matt Murdock and Daredevil in this moment.
There are two stags in every person.
There are two stags in Will Graham. And I think that right now, like the stags are battling it out, and Will is just like trying to figure it out. Like, I think that if Will had had like an extra week or an extra month, things would have turned out very differently than they did here.
I can see that. Yeah. I think having extra time, but like this culminating in moments where like they don't have, like obviously the FBI is running out of patience with Jack's kind of handling of this case. So like they have to do something very quickly.
They should.
As they absolutely should. Yes, absolutely.
Anyway.
They continue to talk, and Jack says that Hannibal thinks you're his man in the room, and I think you're mine. Hannibal says when the fox hears the rabbit scream, he comes running, but not for help. And as the ticking clock gets louder, we see this kind of crazy split screen effect where it's really difficult to describe visually, where like two halves of the screen, one half being Hannibal, one half being Jack, kind of slide together so they almost look like one person. As they both ask the question, will you, when the time comes, will you do what needs to be done? And then we see the same split screen of Will, which should look a lot more natural, but for whatever reason doesn't. Like it still looks out of whack almost, even though Will should match up, right? But he says, "Oh yes, I will be." And this is, I love this effect. Like they really go hard on the visual effects in this episode to a great degree, and I think this is one of the better ones. Of just again, you asking that question of, does he actually, is he working, is he on Hannibal's side or not? Like I don't know. And here's like a visual representation of that.
And I love that. I really love the moment when we turn to Will, and like on one side he looks from up to down, and on the other side he looks from down to up, so for the faces to match, and he has the same expression, and it's so weird, and it's so representative, I think, of his internal dialogue, right? I think throughout the second half of season 2, we've seen Will have like clarity of purpose, right? His goal was to catch Hannibal, and we saw him being like so much more at ease, or not so much at ease, but just like more confident. Whereas in this episode, I find that he kind of goes back to like the scared, wet little man that he was like in season 1, right?
Sorry, scared, wet little man is very hilarious.
But that's what happens, right? Like he just seems so unsure again of himself, like as if his divided loyalties to Jack and to Hannibal are like bringing him back in a space where he no longer knows himself. Oh man, it's so delicious. It's so good.
It's so good. It's absolutely great. And it's, it's going to get even better because we get our intro, and then we see Will walking towards his house at night, and his dogs are barking inside. Which is unusual. And as he approaches the door, they don't calm down. They seem to get even more upset. And as he looks over, we see Garrett Jacobs Hobbs shushing them from the porch. And all of a sudden, Will is carrying a hunting rifle. And Garrett Jacob Hobbs looks at him and says, "See? See?"
Yeah, he does. He does do that.
All of a sudden, Will's house has been transformed into almost like a deer blind, like a deer stand. It's like this. It's a smaller house, but it's like inside this tree, sort of. And the camera zooms out, and Will sights in on the stag, and shoots towards the stag. I'm real confused. I don't know about you. Even having dissected every single episode of Hannibal so far in a way that I never thought that I would dissect every single episode of Hannibal so far.
You're welcome.
I'm still relatively confused, and I really encourage people to write in with their thoughts on this, of what they think the stag represents.
I literally have the exact same questioning at the end.
Do you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we can wait to talk about it, but here was like, because at first I thought the stag represented Hannibal, And then I thought it kind of represented his Will's transformation, but now I almost see it representing like Will's love for Hannibal almost, or the Hannibal that Will loves.
Jeremy, that's exactly what I said.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No. Don't be sorry.
I'm not stealing your notes.
Great.
Am I, like, this is not on this page, right? Like, I'm not just...
No.
Okay.
No. Don't worry. That's not what I'm saying, but I just think it's kind of fascinating that we, without talking to each other about this, like, literally came to the same conclusion that maybe it actually represents their relationship.
That is hilarious. I love this.
Yeah.
High
I
five,
love that.
podcast bro.
High five. We get an A in podcasting.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that and talk about it in depth when we see the last scene of this episode. So.
Yeah, but folks, please write in about that, like what your thoughts are about the representation of the stag, because I think it could mean a lot of things, and I think perhaps it's even possible to say that it evolves throughout the series. So I don't know if we're going to see the stag in season 3, but like I kind of love that. I kind of love that we don't quite know.
And I think it's one of those things that could possibly mean like so many different things to so many different people. So the more variety of answers we get from this, I think is going to just be illuminating to me personally. Like it's one of those things where I can see people having totally different responses to than me based on our theme of this week, which I'm still scared to try to pronounce. So
Terroir.
Terroir.
Yeah, good job. I also found that this moment was like a callback to the mongoose under the house.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Like it really felt like, again, we're hammering home the fact that like we are going back to that first episode, right? That very first moment of them meeting. And oh man, it's so good. And also, can we talk about the fact that Will is encephalitis free and yet still seeing Garrett Jacob Hobbs and the stag?
It's this thing that we keep coming back to. We don't know what Will's mental status was before the show started. Exactly. And it's something that I've come to believe, like he was always having. Hannibal obviously inspires a lot of this, right? But I think left to his own devices, if Jack had pulled him into just this kind of situation of tracking serial killers, that he would be just as messed up. I don't know, maybe not just as, but like he would have the same problems with his identity, with his sense of self, right? Like I think it would have probably taken longer. His encephalitis would have probably been identified much quicker and like dealt with much quicker, but I think he would still have these psychological issues of identity and like who he is as a person and morality and things like that. Like I think he would still have those things. Hannibal just
I'm going to make the
accelerated
exact
that.
same point later too.
Are you serious?
I'm so glad.
I didn't read ahead. Listeners,
No, I know you don't.
you should know, like the way we do notes, like I write a bunch of notes and then Mary comes in behind me and like writes her notes and fills them in. I don't ever read those. Like we kind of read them together, and I'm always very sensitive about like accidentally reading your notes ahead of you because I feel like I'm stealing your ideas. I don't want to do that.
No.
I'm so sorry that I keep stepping on.
No, I think it's great because we're actually reading this the same way. Like I think, and I you know, of course, we're only two people, so it's kind of hard to say like that means that's what the story meant. But I do think that's showing us that this is a perfectly valid way of looking at this, right?
Yeah, and it's not like our own personal Venn circles are like a complete one circle, right? Like we're not completely different people, but we have dramatically different backgrounds and experiences and things like that. Like you know, it's awesome that we are coming to the same conclusions on this show.
Exactly. So. I'm very excited about this. Please continue having the same ideas as me.
We move from here to Hannibal, and we see his face like. I say half blurred out. It's really hard to describe. It's almost like his face is stretching towards, half of his face is stretching like towards the camera. It's a really very strange shot. And we hear this wheezing of breath, and we realize that he's sitting next to Bella. This is the first time we've seen Bella in quite some time. And she's talking about what I think probably could have been our theme for this episode if we didn't go with what we went with, which is forgiveness.
Yes,
because forgiveness it comes up a lot in this episode of who can forgive what and who deserves forgiveness and things like that. And she's talking about how, you know, forgiveness isn't a verb. It's something that happens to you. And I just want to point out, like, I don't know how this actor does this level of I know she's a voice actor by trade also, but Jesus Christ, like the breathing here is so impactful. It's very intense.
Acting is a very physical job, and I think, oh my goodness, I don't remember her name, but this actor is definitely like showing us a masterclass of that in this moment. Like, wow.
Yeah. And she has so many good lines during this. She says she died, that she's between deaths. And Hannibal says that, you know, a punctuation mark at the end of the sentence gives it meaning. And she says, "You moved my punctuation mark, doctor. You moved my meaning." And as she starts to cough, she hits the oxygen tank. And I just want to point out here that, well, I can't remember if this was book or TV show now. I think it was the TV show where she said that she didn't want her bedroom to look like a medical room, right? Was it on the show?
It was on the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you look around, like the only thing in the room that, like, she's not in a medical bed, there's no pill bottles around, like there's just an oxygen tank. Like Jack has done that for her. And I think that's a real, that's a real subtle way of acknowledging Jack's dedication to her. I just wanted to point that out as we're talking about it.
No, I think it's really important to point it out, especially seeing as like we had some criticisms of Jack with his approach to Bella, right? And I think that like showing him respecting those wishes of hers is really, really powerful. And I appreciated that.
And she says that she's not here because she wants to be at this time, but because she can't abandon Jack for a second time. Like, she's already tried suicide once. There's a lot of dialogue in the script that was removed from this, which I don't necessarily think is additive. So I think it's good that they removed it. But Hannibal responds with, "What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others lives on." And she asked him, like, "Will you be there for Jack when I'm gone?" And this is a powerful thing to think about. Obviously, this has some echoes in my own life with my own current struggles. Not to get too personal on the podcast or anything, but like, I love that there's a moment where Hannibal genuinely, where we've literally seen him plot Jack's death, like genuinely considers this, right? Like you could tell that he takes this, like this gets through the veil. And it gets through the uniform or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's several moments during this episode where Hannibal is at his most human, which I think makes his actions at the end of the episode like even more monstrous. And I'm kind of fascinated by that, by the difference there.
I mean, I'm not even going into how heartbreaking this scene is for Bella. Like, I'm going to focus on how evocative it is for Hannibal, because this idea of the punctuation mark giving the meaning to the sentence, like we're going to need to keep that in mind for later when like everything unfolds in the last like 10 minutes of the episode, right? And same thing when he talks about what we do for others versus what we do for ourselves and the choices that he makes at the end of the episode. Yeah, and I think that in this moment, he's in a very different state of mind, arguably, than he is later on in the episode. And I just think that really matters for Hannibal as a character.
Are you keeping track of all the stuff we say we're going to bring up at the end of the episode?
Yes, I am, because I actually bring it up at the end.
Because we've already said that like 6 times now, so we need to make sure we remember to bring all this up.
This is how I know that you don't read my notes, because if you did, you would know that page like 8 or 9 is basically all green.
Okay.
It's all my notes.
That's hilarious. I love it. We move from here to Freddy Lowndes, who is telling Will that she's going to enjoy her resurrection, that she's come very far, and she says that she started on the like cancer beat at a tabloid rag. They talk about hope a little bit, how like these stories in tabloid rags, like offer people some hope. And I'm getting a little bit confused because I don't have this in my notes, but I read the script last night, so I don't remember what was in the script and what was. But they talk about like 1 in 5 Americans dying from cancer, and how like, you know, that everybody needs. Will says everybody needs a little hope. But more importantly, he asked her for a favor to do something, or rather to not do something, to not write about Abigail, to leave her story out of everything that she's going to write between Will and Hannibal. And Freddy like considers this and like asked a pretty insightful question, I think, which is, you really don't know if you're going to survive him, do you? Like, you have no idea what's going to happen after this.
Yeah. I don't even have anything to say about that. I'm just like, I think that conversation about hope is really about Will having false hope in this moment, that things are going to turn out fine, right?
Yes.
Which is completely deluded of him, frankly. Like, he knows who Hannibal is. He knows the things that like Hannibal is capable of. More than anybody, right? More than anybody, because he has done those things with him. Although he's gonna protest to Alana later that like he doesn't know Hannibal, he just understands him, which is somehow like even worse. And if you consider like this moment of just like, oh, you understand who he is, like you say you don't know him, but like you understand exactly what he's capable of. Yeah, exactly. I just, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying when I mean it's completely false hope, because he knows exactly. He knows. He understands. And yet he's still hoping for a positive outcome. And I think that that's possibly because he hopes that his influence on Hannibal is greater than it actually is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, and I think, and that comes back to the question of what is Will trying to do? Is he literally like, because he's telling Hannibal, he told Hannibal in the last episode, you should show Jack who you are. He's going to ask Hannibal in just a little bit, like, would you be happy? And, you know, if you were ever imprisoned in your mind palace, like he's kind of in a way like asking Hannibal's permission to arrest him. Right. Like, yeah. But on the other side, like he's also like encouraging Hannibal to, he also understands what Hannibal is capable of. So it's really difficult to I don't think we have to come to a decision, because I think the show leaves it open for interpretation on Will's behalf too. Yeah. Like, what does Will want to do at this moment? And I don't know that Will necessarily understands. Like, Will is driven by these impulses and these urges that Hannibal constantly encourages him to embrace, which we're going to find out like that Hannibal doesn't even understand, but Will definitely doesn't understand. And it means that his actions, that he's just kind of doing stuff sometimes that he may not necessarily understand the consequences of.
I think if we were to simplify this greatly, we could say that there is a love triangle happening, right? And that's because like we've joked a lot like in the last 2 seasons about like the love story between Hannibal and Will, and we've talked about it seriously, we've joked about it. But I really do think that in this moment you could see Will's indecision between Jack and Hannibal as an indecision between partners, right? He's dating 2 people essentially, and he doesn't know which one to pick.
Yeah, like it's a decision between moralities, right? Like what am I willing to do? It's also maybe like a decision of who he is as a person.
Yes, exactly. What do I want my life to look like? Something
that has come up for me in therapy is like, if I'm not, how do I describe this? Like, if I'm not the person that has always, this is going to be difficult without using specifics, but I'm going to try to be as generic as possible. But like,
of course,
if I'm not the person who does X, right? Just naturally. Like, if X has been controlled because of different kinds of reasons, then all of a sudden I'm not person that does X, which means I'm allowed to choose to be able to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And what do I want to choose? Like,
that's terrifying.
I've always done X, right? But like, I could choose X, Y, or Z, and I have no idea which one I want to be. Like, it makes it so much more difficult. And I have to imagine Will is going through a similar situation as me and my poor therapist.
Yeah, but honestly, Jeremy, like I think that that's so insightful because so the very first research project that I was ever part of was a research in action kind of thing where we got a huge grant from the Movember Foundation. And that was meant, basically the goal was to reduce social isolation in men living with chronic pain. And one of the things that came up in the discussions on how to go about this was literally like the question of identity, the fact that these men living through chronic pain could no longer do the things that they considered to be them, right?
Yes,
the things that
yes.
made them who they are. And they had to like re-story themselves, basically recreate a narration of their own lives that made sense with who they wanted to be. And that was a process, like capital P for them. And a lot of the things also that came up was in those moments were a lot of things about masculinity and like, what does it mean to be a man who cannot do the things that he used to be able to do? And it's, I don't know. I just think that this is incredibly fascinating to look into. And also like, you're not alone in this, like, this is a thing for people and it's really hard.
Yeah. I hear a lot of myself in the ways that you're describing this, like the people that you were doing research on. Like that's something that I have struggled with throughout my illness is just who, if I can't do this or this or this, like what does that make me? Like, you know, in terms of society and in terms of employment and in terms of personality, in terms of relationships and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like people break up over shit like this. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. And so, yeah, navigating, like you said, navigating this is hard. So, yeah.
We move from here to Hannibal's office, where pages are drifting down from the ceiling as if, I think this is going to be I feel like this is a foreshadowing of the rain scene to come at the end of the episode. This is literally Hannibal's thoughts raining down on top of Will.
Oh my God.
The metaphor is strong with this one.
I did not even think of that. And oh my God, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I need this. Take it back. Oh, it's too good.
He's basically throwing down his notes for Will to gather up and to burn. And some of these notes are on Will. These and Will walks them over and throws them into the fire, and we see like the melted clock that Will drew. And Will asks, like, shouldn't you be keeping these? And Hannibal's like, well, I don't want to subject my patients to the FBI scrutiny. So
I think this moment is also really important because, like, we know that Will is very confused. Like, he doesn't really know which way to go, literally. And seeing this, I think, kind of brings... And because, like, there are things that kind of bring the needle one side and bring the needle another side, like, throughout the episode. And I think this is one of those things that brings the needle towards Jack. Because he's like... It's a reminder that of what Hannibal did to him. And yeah, I know that if I were in Will's shoes and I saw that goddamn clock, I would be like, you motherfucker, I cannot believe you did this to me. Right? Like it would be something that I would not have forgiven him for, right? Like to talk about forgiveness. Like I would not have forgiven Hannibal for that, you know? And I do want to mention the fact that the handwriting in those notes is like cursive, but not the perfect copperplate that we saw earlier. So yes. Yeah, he does this specifically for dinner invitations, and I love that for my queen.
So good. Hannibal says that even after they leave this place, he'll have a construct of it in his memory palace, and he talks about how the entrance hall is the Norman. I think it's the Norman entrance and the Palermo Palace.
The Norman Chapel.
Chapel and the Palermo Palace. And it's exactly as it is in real life, except for a single reminder of mortality at the bottom, which is a skeleton. I've used the term memory palace quite often on this podcast. I don't know if you've picked up on it or not.
Yeah.
But it's something that I've wanted to get into a lot, because it's such a key part to Hannibal's character, and I find it so fascinating. It's an idea, like, I'm just now looking at your notes, realizing that you've been here, and I have too. We both we both have happened to be in this place to realize like how ridiculously ostentatious it is that he chose like this particular chapel hall to be the entrance place to his mind. It's so over the top and extra, but it's this concept of a memory palace, which is a real thing, like is just endlessly fascinating for me from Hannibal's perspective.
I only knew Memory Palace from Sherlock, the BBC Sherlock TV show, right? And I thought that was part of like the Sherlock books. But having recently listened to all of the audiobooks, I can tell you that like if it comes up like once. It's not a big deal at all in the Sherlock books, and I don't think it's used. The term Memory Palace is used. And so the fact that it could come from Hannibal and have been adapted like into Sherlock is really fascinating to me. And I love that. But also like just have like the single reminder of mortality, the skeleton graven on the floor. I'm like, that's so goth.
It's so goth.
I love that for him.
It's so goth.
And there's just this one thing because I was looking through and I wanted to see, because for some reason I was like, I've seen this image before. Like it reminded me of something in Bones, and I was like, maybe this is, and I was trying to make a link, but it turns out that like the praying skeleton is not a part of the Norman Chapel in Palermo. It's actually part of the Church of Santa Maria della Vittoria in Rome. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is so telling of Hannibal, because like he changes details that he doesn't like, right? He changes people that do things that he doesn't like. He will change the location of his memory palace to suit his needs. And I think that there's something there about that speaks to how Hannibal will mold reality to fit his needs.
It's so interesting too, because later in this episode, Katie, the FBI agent, is going to tell Alana that like you can't just mold reality to fit your needs.
It's true,
and absolutely, yeah. And there's some additional conversation here. The one I want to pick up specifically is Hannibal talking about how there's not only good rooms in this memory palace, like some of the chambers are locked. There are holes in the floor of the mind, which is just a really evocative line. And I want to talk a little bit about the way this is expressed in the books, because in the books, this is not just like a visual representation. Like this is a full like audio visual experience. So he'll place paintings in certain rooms along with smells of certain people. He decorates this memory palace to his liking so that he can explore it to his whim. And of course, in the books, most of our time with Hannibal is spent with him in prison. So we get a lot of him kind of closing his eyes and just being taken from somewhere. And of course, we've seen this with Will, right? And Will brings up, like, he's like, I don't need a palace. All I need is a quiet stream, right? Like, and just, where I can close my eyes and wade into it. And I love the idea. I think this is something that they both connect with each other on, or they connected with each other on without knowing it. This is one of the things that Hannibal picked up on Will from the very beginning, of like, this is somebody that experiences emotions and experiences things and can re-experience them at will in a similar way that I can. Will through his empathy and Hannibal through his memory palace. And I just, again, the more connections we make between Hannibal and Will, similarity, I think is just tantalizing for me. So,
well, I mean, in the outtakes, we did talk about like Kingpin and Daredevil as being the two sides of the same coin, and I really do think that here, Hannibal and Will are two sides of the same coin. Oh man. Remember when you were like, hey,
let's start a podcast.
Let's do a podcast. It's a bit gory. Like, it's a bit gory, but like, it's fine. It's fine. It's just a bit gory.
Yeah, without ever realizing you would have literally written a paper on medical gaslighting. Extremely, extremely good. Hannibal says that he's going to live in his memory palace if he's ever apprehended. And Will says, kind of with a hitch in his voice almost, could you be happy there? Yeah. And this, of course, is when Hannibal says, it's not just like a pleasurable experience. Like there's holes in the memory in the floor of the mind. And as they start gathering these notes together to burn, Will leans in front of him, and Hannibal gets a good sniff, because Hannibal loves to sniff. And we see this incredible image of kind of an up close picture of a scalp with hair follicles coming out, all in bright red on a black background. And the camera zooms out, and we see Freddy Lount's face, not covered in blood, but bright red, as if she was completely covered in blood. There's I don't know if you know this. Several years ago, Autumn got me a one of these picture frames that people can send pictures to.
Yes.
And it came up in our Discord, like the email address got resurfaced after several years of it not really being in use. And somebody sent me a picture. I've been wanting to tell you this for so long. I'll try to snap a picture of it. Where it's literally just Hannibal and Will and Freddy just like sitting down at a snack table, like having some snacks, except Freddy is totally like in this makeup.
I had seen that and I was like, what the fuck kind of show is this?
It's so good. It's so
when
good.
I saw her in that red makeup, I was like, oh, there it is.
I love it. Absolutely.
I also thought that it would last longer than just the few seconds she's on screen.
It's got to be.
Oh my God.
It's got to be frustrating to do this amount of makeup and only have it be on screen for like 20 seconds. So
yeah,
if that, I don't even think it was 20 seconds. So
it's so worth it though. And honestly, like, yeah. And I do love that it's linked to her hair. That the smell is linked to her hair, because like you just know that, you know, Freddy, in order to get those like frizz-free, like perfectly defined 3B curls, like she's got to be using some curly girl products, like for sure.
She's got that special curling iron that the girls on TikTok seem to want all the time. Yeah.
Basically, right?
Autumn has never curled her hair in her life, that I know of, or at least not since we've known each other. And I used to work adjacent to the cosmetology industry. So that means I would go to these like trade shows, and there'd be all of these like hair products, and people would give away stuff for free. So I'd like bring home stuff. And like at some point, I don't remember what the situation was, but I won a curling iron.
I love that.
Yeah, like, and I don't know why I was even in the running. Like, I'm not there to win stuff, but whatever. Like, so I brought home this thing, and I was like, "Hey, I got something for you." And I'm sure she was like, "Oh, he got me a special present." And like, I hand her this curling iron, and she just looks at me like I can't even. It'd be like giving her the keys to like a Caterpillar, like construction vehicle. Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I have no idea what. I don't even think she took it out of the package. I think she just gave it to a friend at work. But yeah.
That's too funny. I love that so much.
We do need to talk about the Hannibal's face which is just full of betrayal at this moment. Mads does such a wonderful job of not moving, of not exaggerating, but just showing so much emotion in just a very basic kind of look. And it's good. Throughout the rest of this episode, we're going to see this look on his face. And here is the first time where he just looks like, I can't believe you betrayed me. Like this, you've been lying to me. Mm-hmm. And it's just heartbreaking. There's no other word for it.
And I think like in the understatedness of his acting, like you really see this is, I'm thinking about Katie right now, but it's like, I'm really seeing what is it, Sebastian? I'm arranging matches. Like it's really like so, like you said, nothing is said. And yet, you know that like, oh my God. And and it's such a relatable feeling also, when you find out that somebody has betrayed you and they don't know yet. They don't know that you know, but you know. And it's, anyway. And
it's such a disappointment. Like,
yeah, what a horrible feeling.
And, you know, I think he's a fictional character. And like, I know we don't have to tell our listeners that or anything, but like, I genuinely think that there's like a moment where you have empathy for Hannibal, who, for all of the things that he has done and for all of his monstrousness, you know, there's this, he's pulled back the curtain, he's pulled back the veil to show Will who he really is. Mm-hmm. And everybody has been in this position with a lover or with a friend or even with a family member, where you expose your vulnerability, where you tell them something and they use it against you, or you find out that they've been lying to you about a certain thing, or they've been cheating on you, or whatever it is, but they've abused your trust, right? And that moment here of Will abusing Hannibal's trust, like, you have a genuine moment of empathy, thinking of Hannibal just like, oh, I thought we were doing this together, but we're not. And it's multiplied. You don't realize it at this moment because it hasn't been revealed yet. But when you think about like the surprise that Hannibal has in store for Will, right? Like, not only is it going to be us, it's going to be our family. I've saved Abigail for you. I
have a lot of thoughts about that, but I completely understand what you're saying. And I don't think you need to because I know you're like, he's a fictional character, he eats people, like, of course, like, we know that. Yeah. But I don't think you need to, I don't think that empathizing with Hannibal's sense of betrayal means that you necessarily like agree with everything else that he is, right? Like, I think that that's okay. You can, it can be a yes and situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. We see this scene with Alana. We get Alana's voiceover. She's talking about how she gets very little sleep, and what little sleep she does feels like broken up. And we see her on this like bed of satin, and she's covered by sheets, and the sheets are pulled away. And as she starts talking about the darkness coming into her and my nose and my ears, and how she feels poisoned, we see this rush of water cover her, and as she is basically submerged into this oily black substance, which is very reminiscent of the like, and I've always wondered why they didn't return to like the weird oily expression of Alana that we saw when Will was in jail earlier in the season.
Right.
And I wonder if this is a nod to that in some way of her. I don't know, like, this is maybe, and I don't know if this is Will thinking this or her thinking this, but like, Will seeing her like that was him thinking like, oh, she's on Hannibal's side, and like maybe this is her thinking the same thing in a different way. I don't know.
Oh no, I love that, Jeremy. And I think so. We know that Will has a tendency of like empathizing and seeing things that other people don't see. Maybe this is just Alana's turn to see. Like, Will was able to see it before, but now Alana's seeing it. Yeah. Right. And so that black oiliness is the way that she conceptualizes Hannibal.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. And I really love this moment for so many reasons. One of them being that we're seeing Alana going through something really, really similar that Will went through in season 1 and the first half of season 2, except she doesn't have encephalitis, right? Like, she's having those nightmares. And I just find it so interesting because it gives us a hint as to how much of season 1 Will was under the influence of Hannibal and how much of it was the encephalitis. Because I think my argument is that, like, from seeing Alana go through this, that like Will would have been under Hannibal's, like, maybe not control, but certainly under his influence regardless. Like, the encephalitis just made it easier for Hannibal to get to him, to access like his mind. But like I said earlier, Will is still seeing the stag. Will is still seeing Garrett Jacob Hobbs. Like, we thought that was the I thought that this was the encephalitis. I'm not going to put you in that. Like, I'm going to take the blame for myself. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the encephalitis, but that's just Will, it turns out.
I think there's an argument to be made that if Will hadn't had the encephalitis in season 1, that Hannibal would have had much more of an influence of Will. It was Will. It was Will going through that and discovering that deception that really made him realize, like, oh shit, like this was not me. I was being directly influenced. I was being lied to by Hannibal. If he hadn't caught him in that lie at that moment, like, he could still be thinking that they were friends, right? Like, still thinking that, you know, he could have easily been led to some different places. So
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it's interesting that Alana is now seeing Hannibal and like having to deal with the emotional backlash from that, because obviously, like, they were both very close to Hannibal, but you could argue that Alana was, at the very minimum, physically closer to Hannibal than anybody else in the show has been. So, yeah.
Well, again, I think specifically because of like what could and couldn't be told as a story in 2013, 2014, Alana is kind of put in that situation where she's like a stand-in for Will, right? Especially when it comes to the physical relationship between her and Hannibal. Like I think that the story might have been told differently if Bryan Fuller had been allowed to tell an openly queer story.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Do you think, I'm always curious about this, like, do you think that the story would have been better if it would have been openly queer? I know that's a loaded question, and I don't want to put you on the spot. But like, no, I wonder if there's an aspect. I guess where my brain is going with that is like, I wonder if there's an aspect of like, compulsion or like, you know, dark thoughts that, you know, we don't want to see in queer stories anymore, but that maybe is attractive to some people. Dealing with their own queerness in such a way. And as a cis white dude, like I don't really, this is not my lane at all. I'm just kind of curious at what you thought about it.
But it's a really good question. And I just want to reframe something that you said, like that we don't want to see dark themes in queer stories anymore. And because like, I do think that the need for queer stories, or like the stated need and want for queer stories has changed. Like people want a variety of different stories when it comes to queerness.
I should have said that. Yeah.
No. But you have a really good point that like in the past we've only had a certain kind of story where like it ended badly, right? And it's still ongoing today. But what I find really fascinating with Bryan Fuller in this particular show is that he is giving us like a queer horror story made by a queer person. And I think that when you explore dark themes in queer stories in that way, I'm okay with it. You know, like I want to see that. I want to see queer horror stories. I want to see queer rom-coms. I want to see queer bank heists. Like I want to see all of that. I have a problem with seeing only like, you know, bury your gays stories written by straight people. Like I don't want to see that anymore. That is not of interest to me. But the dark themes that Bryan Fuller explores here, oh my God, I am in for it. Like I find that so good because it's a genre that we don't get often, sure. Right? Mm-hmm. And so to answer your question, I don't know if it would have been better because like, I'm just thinking about, because I don't know that I can really imagine something like that at the moment. Yeah. Like I am limited by my past experiences as somebody who has grown up watching almost exclusively stories where the queerness was hidden. And so to me, that's like interest. I don't know, honestly, if it would have been better. It would have been different, that's for sure.
I want to shout out somebody on the Discord who's going by Will's Foxskin Winter Hat because everybody on our Discord has very funny Hannibal themed names. But they recommended The Monster of Elendhaven as it's a fictional book, and they said it was very murder husbandy, and I was in a place last night where I just kind of needed something to read real quick, and ended up reading about half of it, maybe 60%.
Wow!
And it's a shorter book, but it's very much a dark love story between two men, and it very much like if you dig Hannibal, like you will probably dig the stuff that's happening in this book. So I just wanted to give it a shout out real quick since we were talking about it.
Love that.
And thank you for answering my question in a thoughtful way. Even though I completely just tossed you on the spot with that.
No. It was a really good question, honestly.
Alana says that they are still in the thick of everything. And she the truth finally clicks where she says that Will is goading Hannibal into a trap. But she's worried that Hannibal is now doing the same for Will. And Will is like, even I don't really know if that's happening. Like I'm kind of confused too. And she's crying as she says this, and her tears fall to the table below. And as the second tear falls where the first one is, it's mixed with blood. And
is it blood?
Is it blood? Is it blood?
Is it blood?
And the scene kind of fades out, and we fade into this dinner table, which the more, I think it's really easy to overlook some of the details in Hannibal. I genuinely believe that even us going, 2.5 hours per episode, that we've left content on the table, quote unquote content on the table. We've left like interpretations, or we've left stuff on the table to be talked about, to be discussed. This is one of those things where, like, the first time I watched it, I was like, well, this all looks like weird food. And then like the second or third time, you're just like, whatever. And then like the fourth time, I'm like, what the fuck is happening with this food? What are they eating?
Yes, exactly.
And it's such a bizarre dinner table setup. I just, it's so weird.
You brought up something that I never would have probably noticed, I think. And can you please tell me more about the grief lobster?
I wish I could. I wanted to do some research. Shout out to, who is this on Tumblr that I stole this from? I can't find it in my thing, but yeah, somebody on Tumblr, Orchestral Element, had a post talking about the grief lobster, and you see it very briefly, and it's just a full lobster that's obviously been cooked, coming out of what looks like a broken cantaloupe.
It's hatching.
It's a literal, like, and we're going to talk about an imago here in a second. And we're going to, like, a lot of the story about Hannibal is about transformation and about, like, whispering into the chrysalis and all this stuff and not knowing what's going to come out on the other side. And like, here's like a visual representation of that scene on the table that just seems ignored by the two people that are eating. And I'm just absolutely fascinated by, like, the person who's probably spent hours and hours of their life making this plate that we see for 5 seconds. And apparently the fandom has picked this up as the grief lobster. I've never heard of this before last night until I was on Tumblr. Apparently it's a thing. I don't know if it's actually a thing or not. Please give me any and all interpretations of your grief lobster. I need them. rude.eats.podcast@gmail.com. I need to know more about what the fandom thinks about this, because it's absolutely fascinating. I watched this a third time with Autumn last night, and like, I paused it and I was like, check out this grief lobster. And she was like, the what? What did you say? And I was like, I know, this is very confusing for both of us. I am, this whole table, from like the desiccated turkey, I guess, lamb. He says he cooked lamb.
It's lamb, yeah.
It's just fascinating to me. Like, it's the most goth meal I've ever seen somebody eat, I think. Like, and not goth in like, we're serving you, black cupcakes, but like, that's a dead bird over there. Like, that's a lobster coming out of a cantaloupe egg. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is this at all?
I really feel like all of the tables that Hannibal puts together could be read as like mixtapes, right? Like, given to a lover.
I love this idea so much. I love this. This is so good.
But like, the amount of effort that has to be put into making a mixtape, as we know from Dean and Castiel, for the younger generations maybe listening to this, it takes a really long time to make a mixtape, in case you don't know. And it's like, oh, I just made you a mixtape, and like this very like offhanded thing, like. And the show treats it that way too, where like we see the table, but it's kind of like an offhanded thing. But like you said, he had to have spent hours doing this.
Yes.
And everything has a message in it. And it's like every song tells like of a specific feeling that he has for Will. Every grief lobster hatching from a cantaloupe has like a message hidden in it. And Will just doesn't pick that up, or it's never talked about, at least, right?
Yeah. Like, I would, there's a moment that is off screen where Hannibal has prepared all of these dishes and laid them out, and presumably led Will into the dining room. Yeah. And Will has to like take in all of these dishes that are before him. Right. And I'm just like, because Will is a very metaphorical person. Like, he's a very insightful person. Like, he looks at things and he understands where they're coming from. He's obviously a very empathic person. So, like, he's going to look at the grief lobster and think that it's a grief lobster. And Hannibal is kind of saying here, like, I know what you did, right? Like, he's
absolutely.
And he's even saying, like, he's going to verbally say here in a couple of minutes, like, I will forgive you for it. But it's just not, but like Will is so focused on catching him at this moment, or trying to be this person, trying to pretend to be this role, that I guess he just doesn't pick up on it. And to be fair, like, I didn't pick up on the grief lobster the first 4 or 5 times I walked in the room, so I can't blame Will for not catching it either. So
okay, so if Autumn ever makes you a mixtape, like, you're gonna need like a couple of listens, like, to be able to understand what she's telling you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Did you ever know about anybody that got like real serious about mixtapes? Like, they got like not just for like romantic purposes, but just for like their own enjoyment, and like got real into them.
I'm so sorry to tell you that I think I am one of those people.
That's fine. That's totally fine. I had a friend, I'll never forget it, and this is one of my best friends, and I would tell him this to his face, but like I very vividly remember him like spending hours on this like CD, and he named it Indigo. And I don't know, it was something very funny about naming the mixtape Indigo, and it had a lot of like Depeche Mode on it. Like, it was a good CD, like, it was a good mixtape, and I'm not saying anything bad about it, but yeah, he was very serious about it though.
I'm sure and when you said Indigo, I'm like, I could pinpoint exactly when in time this was made.
Yeah. This is like very,
yes.
This is very like 2001, 2002 era.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much.
I also want to point out the seating in this. So many times we've seen Will and Hannibal sit across from one another as equals, and this is one of the few occasions I think that we see Hannibal at the head of the table and Will at his right, when there's nobody else at the table. Like, this right. Traditionally where Hannibal would sit if Alana or Jack was here or something like that, but this is just the two of them, and he's sitting kind of catty corner to him, which I think has a lot of meaning. When two cis dudes sit down at a table, like, they generally sit across from one another, because, very much a no homo seater arrangement kind of deal.
Of course. Right.
And, like, this very much feels like I want to be closer to you, but also at the same time, like, I think it's Hannibal saying, retaking control over the situation. Whereas before he saw them, he was allowing Will to be treated as an equal to himself. Now he's put himself on another pedestal here, I think.
Well, I think that this is, inside Hannibal are two stags as well, right? There's the one that wants to try to convince Will to stay with him or to run away with him, like to choose him. But then there's also the other side of him that's like, I need to protect myself from potential harm. And I think, again, that is incredibly relatable when you've been betrayed, and you're trying to like get answers from the person who betrayed you, right? You want to both protect yourself from the harm that they can inflict on you further to the betrayal, but you also want, like, you still love them.
Yeah.
And so there's still that wants to try to understand them and to be close to them. And yeah, Hannibal is going through it.
Yeah, and he talks about, he asks Will, what an imago is, and
he takes like this really amazing, like completely unnecessary but really hilarious swipe at the dead religion of psychoanalysis, and I loved it personally.
I did think this was very funny, and he talks about how we carry the last image of a loved one buried in our subconscious, carried with us all of our life. And how they have a concept of one another now, and he just looks so heartbroken during this scene. And normally, like, his hair is very slicked back and styled, like he's wearing like this like red checkered like tailored suit, which is incredible, but like his hair is kind of down in front of his face a little bit, and it just, I don't know. It just speaks that he's just a little off his game. Like this betrayal has put him off a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think when he was with Bella too, like as solemn as he looked with Bella, he still looked like, the world had promises for him, right? Like he looked almost upbeat and happy in that scene, right? Talking about the things that we do for others and like, punctuation marks at the end. Like he had hope. He was hopeful. Whereas here, like he no longer has hope. Like that has been the teacup has been shattered.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is a man who knows that his boyfriend is cheating on him and planning to leave him. And I just, again, like if we want to bring back that love triangle idea, like he knows that his partner has done something. Like it's sorry, I'm getting really worked up because I feel so bad for him, because it's like, it's when you know that the person you love has done something, but they don't know that you know, and like they continue acting as if everything is fine, but like everything they say now you're looking at through a completely different filter because you know that they've betrayed you. And like, you can totally see this happening when like Will is talking, that Hannibal is putting it through the betrayal filter.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're lying to me right now. And it's just so infuriating.
And they talk about ideals, right?
Yeah.
And Will makes the comment that neither of us are ideal. And Hannibal says, is it ideal that Jack die? And Will says, it's necessary. What happens to Jack has been preordained. And Hannibal kind of rejects this and says, we could just leave. Like, we could just leave tonight. Like, leave a note behind for Alana, like, feed your dogs, don't say goodbye. Like, it's almost polite, he says. And there was also, I don't think I put it in my notes, but there's also this conversation about forgiveness here, I think. Is this where they talk about?
It's after. But yes,
okay.
That's basically when they start talking about it. And in that moment where he's like, let's run away together, essentially.
Yes.
Like that's the offer here that's on the table, literally. Having done a podcast on our Flag Bean's death, I was like, oh, there it is. Like, Hannibal is literally asking Will to run away with him, just like Ed asked Steed to run away with him to China. And I really think that this is Hannibal in his mind, like giving Will one more chance, one last chance. He's like, if we just leave, if you leave with me now, then we can just forget about this and we can just start anew. Like, this is, like I said, it's basically the last chance that he's giving him. He's like, let's try this one more time. But Will chooses to lie to him.
And it speaks to, we talking about that vulnerability that you expose to someone and then it gets abused. And it, even in that moment where you've been cheated on, or you've been betrayed, or you've been lied to, that it doesn't change your emotion for that person. And that's so hard for people to understand, I think, that haven't gone through that. Of just because they did this doesn't mean, like, I can't just turn off the love for that person. And this is an expression of that, of just like, if I remove this temptation, right? Like, this is Hannibal saying, like, it could just be us. Like, if if Jack wasn't around, if Alana wasn't around, we wouldn't have to worry about those things. If I took you away from all other women, you wouldn't cheat on me. Like, kind of, but not necessarily that. But like, just if we could take off today, and I would forgive you, basically. And it's so hard to conceive of, I guess. It's so hard to. I don't even know how to describe it. It's so hard to watch because Mads just has such a heartbroken face.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, and it's weird because you can feel the tension in Will in that moment. Like, that he considers it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man. I hate this. He should have just run away with him.
Should have just left. You should have left.
He should have just left. But again, I think that Will is just not quite fully ready to forgive Hannibal.
No.
for what he's done to him, and for what he's done to Abigail as well, right? Or what he thinks he's done to Abigail.
I think that's part of it. And again, like Will struggling with the person that he may be versus the person that he wants to be, like struggling with that idea of morality.
Of course.
The mail truck arrived, so Rosie is losing her mind. I don't know if that's coming through on the mic, but if it is,
Not
I
at
apologize.
all, actually.
Yeah.
Rosie, bark louder. I can't hear you, girl.
Scare the FedEx lady away. Will says that this, if they leave, that this would be their last supper, and Hannibal corrects him and says, "Of this life," and man, it kind of. I think this is a very. I think this is a view of Hannibal, like. Just like we don't know how Jack was before the encephalitis, we don't know a lot of history of Hannibal. We don't know where he's been or what he's done. We know that he went to medical school. We know that he, was a ER surgeon, but like we don't really have a clear history of Hannibal's life or what he's done before now. And this, I think, is a great remark of like Hannibal being willing to just like drop everything and be like, yeah, let's start a new one. Who cares?
Yeah. But so true. And that's exactly that's what I was thinking when I was listening to this. I was like, this is exactly what he told Abigail when he when we thought he was going to kill her, but in fact, when he kidnapped her, he's like, I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you in this life. And it's like you said, it's that idea that like also throughout this episode, he's talking about like dismantling his life. And it just really feels like he has started completely different lives in different places, fate and circumstance and all. And it's like, yeah, he's basically offering Will to start over with him. And I know he's a cannibal and all, but oh my God, that's really romantic,
It is very romantic. As somebody that literally got engaged to somebody that they weren't dating and eloped to Italy, I feel this.
Yeah.
I kind of did this. I was like, let's go, let's just do this. Fuck everybody. Let's rock this out. And Hannibal kind of doubles down on this even when he says he doesn't need a sacrifice, but Will says he needs Jack to know. And Hannibal says I would forgive you, but if Jack was to tell you that all was forgiven, would you accept it? And Will has this moment where you can tell he's battling those two inner stags of Jack isn't offering forgiveness. He wants justice. He wants to see you. He wants to see who you are. He wants the truth. And Hannibal once again does a great job of just looking down and realizing exactly how this is going to play out and exactly what he's going to have to do or what he has to do in order to protect himself. And he proposes a toast to the truth then and all of its consequences.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about this because I think that there is a miscommunication here because I think Will is warning Hannibal and I think Hannibal is seeing this as a rejection. And
Interesting. Do you think Will is warning him in this?
Yes, I do think so.
Okay.
I think so. And that comes back later and I'll talk about that more at that point. But I sincerely think at this point that Will, maybe in spite of himself, of one of his two stags is warning him. He's he wants to see who you are. Jack doesn't want justice. Be careful, run the fuck away. But as I was taking notes for this, I sort of I kind of realized that from Hannibal's point of view, Will chose Jack over him, right? In the love triangle thing, and Will has no idea that this is happening. And as I was writing, I kind of realized that this is there could have been a needle drop for Call Your Girlfriend, right? Hannibal begging Will to just run away with him, and Will is no, I gotta tell Jack so he knows the truth. It was just really good, and I really like that. But knowing that Will is going to say to Hannibal in that really tense final 10 minutes, knowing what he's going to tell him, I think he's trying to get him to leave, but he has completely underestimated Hannibal's feelings for him. I know that we joke about like the slutty curl and like the change of wardrobe in season 2, but if I really take a step back and look at this critically and look at the narrative critically, I wonder if Will knows that Hannibal isn't just fascinated by him, but that he's in love with him. And if I stop to think about that, I really don't think that Will has realized that at all. Like, I don't think Will knows.
I'm trying to decide where I fall in on that. I think I can agree with you that Will doesn't understand the depth of Hannibal's feelings. Will does not understand how rare it is for Hannibal to show himself to someone, his real self, behind the veil, right? Like, I think he may be, as you said, underestimating those feelings. I wonder if he's actually... I don't know that I can get behind him actually trying to warn Hannibal away at this moment, because it seems like at this moment to me he's like trying to reel him in. Like, he's at this moment, like, and I know it's a situation where we know that Hannibal knows that Will is lying, but at this moment, like, this is the most lying that I feel like Will has done during this conversation. So I don't know. It's an interesting perspective, and now it makes me want to go back and watch the episode for like the 10th time and watch it again.
Because if you look back at this sentence, like, the actual line is like, Jack isn't offering forgiveness. He wants justice. He wants to see you see who you are. Like, that's not lying.
No, you're absolutely right. No, you're right.
And I'm not saying, because like we see a lot in this show, like truth being used as a weapon to tell a lie. So I think you could easily make the argument that, like, yes, he's not lying, but he is trying to entrap Hannibal, because he is, right? But I think that, like, if we take his uncertainty, I don't know. I feel like Will, as he's getting close to the moment, is kind of panicking and realizing that he doesn't actually want Hannibal to get caught. Right? And we've talked about this, and I think this is starting to come out here, because the way that he's talking to Hannibal in this episode is so different from the way that he talks to him, like, even after he kills his protege, for example, after he kills Randall. Like, Will is no longer this, like, really assured, in control killer. He's, like, really worried about Hannibal. Like, something shifts there, where Will realizes the depths of his feelings towards Hannibal, and he's like, and I can only assume that loving somebody who has hurt you as badly as Hannibal has, like, it can't be a good place to be, right? And so even, like, past the morality point, it's like, how can I, like, think of myself so little that I am willing to go back to somebody who has hurt me so badly?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, like, something that you can't discount when it comes to Will. And I think that, like, him trying to warn Hannibal in spite of himself is also that. Like, I think that we're past the morality here. I think this is entirely, like, how can I think of myself so little that I'm willing to run away with the man who killed the girl that I saw as my daughter? It would be a betrayal of Abigail.
Yeah, of her memory, which he's obviously, like, concerned about, because we saw him have the conversation with Freddy Lowndes where he wants to protect her memory, right? Like, that's,
exactly.
This show,
I don't know. This
show,
is just my thoughts.
No.
I could be wrong.
No, I'm not, if I'm quiet, it's only because I'm taking it in. I hadn't thought about it from this angle at all, so I'm just, like, kind of blown away a little bit. I'm boggled, as the kids say. Kids still say boggled, right? That's something that they definitely say.
I don't know anymore. When I realized that we replaced freaking out with crashing out, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, what are we doing? Yeah.
I was like, no.
Don't even get me started on raw dogging, by the way, because that's... We have abused that phrase. That means a thing, and it doesn't mean the thing that everybody seems to think it means anymore.
I heard 11-year-olds saying it the other day, and I was like, you cannot say that. And he was like, why? Everybody does. And I'm like, because it has to do with sex. And that like that made him so uncomfortable. He was like, okay, fine, I won't say it anymore.
So with all of that in mind, let's go to Jack's boss, Cade, or Katie. It's spelled Kade, so I always get her name wrong.
I know, honestly, same. We're mispronouncing things.
It's funny, in the script, this scene is so much more robust, and it has our two members of the ERT in the room making jokes and
really?
all this other stuff. Yeah, like there's a whole thing. And I'm kind of glad they got rid of it, because I don't really... There's one moment of humor in this episode that I think is absolutely like just a brilliant moment, but I don't even think it's like meant to be funny. I just think it's like a great read of a line. But
Yes.
I don't really need like people cracking jokes throughout this episode or anything. So,
Yeah, I agree.
but she has come down to basically warn Jack that what he's doing is entrapment. Like,
Yep.
they are using a FBI informant. She's very specific not to say FBI agent, to encourage...
Because he's not.
Because he's not. To encourage Hannibal to commit murder. And, he argues that, this is the only way that they can get Hannibal and all this stuff. But, like, at the end of the day, she's his boss, and he's been lying to her, essentially. And she says that, she knows what's been going on with her... with his wife, so she's going to put him on forced compassionate leave, which, boy, if that's not like a double speak government situation there, I don't know what is, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And as the camera pulls back, we see like two other agents in there, and we get the like classic "give me your gun and badge" scene, and has to like walk out of the office without his gun and his badge. And I, there was a moment in this where I thought, like, because he tells Will earlier in the episode, like, I'm going to wear a wire and I'm going to have snipers backing me up. And of course, we don't see any of that. And I was like, what happened to the snipers? I was like, oh, yeah, he got fired. Like, he's doing all of this on his own. Like, he's not an FBI agent when he goes to Hannibal's house later. So, like, there's no snipers on the roof or anything, which is a bummer. Because snipers could have helped.
It is a bummer, Jeremy. You're right. It's a bummer. This whole episode is kind of a bummer anyway.
It
right?
is.
So,
it's very much a bummer. Yes.
Very much a bummer. I know that this is meant to be like, she's annoying. She's like not letting him do his job. But like, she has a point. She is actually entirely right in doing what she's doing, I think. And literally so many people are telling Will and Jack that this is a bad idea. But are they listening? No, absolutely not. And look where that gets them. Everybody tells them it's a bad idea. Hannibal tells Will it's a bad idea.
Yes. I wonder if there's an overlap in the people that think that Katie is annoying in this, and people that don't like Skylar from Breaking Bad.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's the same kind of trope or same characterization where like this is absolutely like, we've been talking about it forever, like the FBI has forgotten how to FBI, and this is absolutely what they should be doing. Like, they should be cracking down on weird shit like this. In the script, it even goes so far as to say, like, even if you catch him, like, you'll never be able to prosecute him. Like, you're not gonna be able to do anything with this. You're not even... This
is what I've been saying the whole time!
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. And in the next scene, we see... we have a very quick scene of Jack sitting beside Bella and kind of kissing her on the forehead as he leaves, presumably to go to confront Hannibal by himself. And then we see Alana kind of questioning Katie on what she's going to do, who says, like, I'm going to go through the normal FBI procedures. Like, we're going to freeze his passport. We're going to get a search warrant. We're going to do all of these things. And Alana's like, no, you have to catch him in the act. Like, he's already invited the FBI in. You're not going to find evidence. Like, you have to catch him in the act, and Jack and Will are the best people to do that. And
which is exactly what Will was saying in early season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So again, like, I just want to really highlight the link between what Alana is going through now and what Will has gone through, because I think that that's going to be so telling for season 3. Alana, also, by the way, full disclosure, I know that Alana survives this because I've seen stills of her in season 3. So I'm just assuming that in season 3 she is going to have like a I'm imagining like a liberation of some sort, where she starts kind of like Will thinking of like, what does she want her life to look like, and not like what is her life expected to look like.
Boy, everybody out there, I just want you to clap at the liberation comment. Just everybody out there, just
maybe she gets a girlfriend. Does she get a girl? Does she get a girlfriend?
So
no, this is so exciting. I was right again.
Katie brings out pictures of Randall, who, of course, you know.
I'm so excited.
Will murdered, and like then mutilated, and it's like, you know, there's a point of self-defense, and Will went far, far beyond it, which is, I don't know if you remember exactly what Bedelia said in the last episode of like, there's a point where it was self-defense and there's a point where it wasn't, and she says she's going to bring Jack Crawford and Will up on charges. She's going to arrest them both.
And I mean, to go with her point, he literally like cut out a piece of his flesh for Hannibal to prepare as dinner.
Yeah,
right. Like that is not self-defense.
Stretched his face over like a thing and put him on display, like a skull, and put him on display.
Right.
Like, yeah, there was a like Will was enjoying that. There was a moment of Will just absolutely enjoying that.
Exactly, and I think that Will not wanting to say that, or not wanting to like wrestle with the fact that he enjoyed it is also one of the reasons why he's having trouble coming to terms with his feelings for Hannibal.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of warns that Jack and Will won't stop. And then Will gets a phone call at his house from Alana, who is in the parking lot. Alana says that they're coming to arrest him, and as she says this, he looks outside of his window and he sees like the FBI SUVs pulling up. So he quickly like grabs a gun and says that he has to go, and then runs out the back door. And then we cut to Hannibal in Hannibal's kitchen, who gets a phone call. And it's Will on the other line, and he simply says, "They know." And obviously the parallels with the call that Hannibal made to Garrett Jacob Hobbs in the first episode of the series are unmistakable here. The consequences are much different.
Yes.
Garrett Jacob Hobbs immediately goes on like a killing spree, whereas Hannibal just kind of chills and like waits for people to come to him,
and yet still goes on a killing spree.
And then goes on a killing spree. It's I just was screaming like that. They know.
Yeah,
that is. Yeah. It's Brian Fuller. What are you doing? What are you doing to me personally? Why are you personally attacking me?
I know, right? Okay, so in this, one thing that I really like from a storytelling perspective, one thing that I really appreciate here is that I find that right now a lot of the stories that offer parallels or like callbacks or this and that kind of fall into the whole like circular storytelling issue where like they just retell the same story again, just in a different way. But here, this callback is very, very smart because of course, it's supposed to bring us back to that moment, but I would actually argue that this is a very different situation. Because in season 1, Hannibal calls Garrett Jacob Hobbs like out of pure curiosity, right? Like he wants to see what's going to happen. Here, I would also argue that Will is not curious. He wants Hannibal to leave. Like that is his design in that moment. He's like, they know, leave now. But just like Will has underestimated Hannibal's feelings for him, I think that Hannibal is going to underestimate Will's feelings for him. And I think that he assumes that like the whole they know, because he's seeing it through the lens of Will's betrayal, is meant as, I just wanted to see what would happen. Because Will has done this to him in the past, right? He's done this to him when he tried to kill him last time. I was just curious what would happen. And so because Hannibal doesn't know if he can trust Will, or he thinks that he can't, he's pretty convinced that he can't at this point, actually. And so Hannibal is going to make choices based on that, when in fact, the more productive way would have been to make choices based on the fact that he could trust Will. But I also fully understand that he wouldn't, right? I wouldn't trust Will at this point because Will has been lying to him for months and months on end.
So, like, having, like, in Hannibal's view, having Will make this phone call is, like, it must feel very much like bait, where he wants, where he feels that Will wants him to spring out, right?
Yes.
And do something rash so that he can be caught in the middle of doing something rash. So instead of, doing what Garrett Jacob Hobbs did, which is immediately killing everybody around him, he waits very calmly, and he just continues to do what he's doing because he assumes that he's under surveillance this entire time. So knowing or thinking that and knowing that he's probably being betrayed by Will, he looks over the fact that, again, as you said, he underestimates Will's feelings for him. He looks over the fact that Will could actually be telling the truth and that this is a literal warning.
This was an actual warning. Yeah. It wasn't like let's see what's going to happen.
And sure enough, Jack enters the kitchen, and we're back in the first episode of season 2. And there's a moment where Hannibal says, you're early. Will you sous chef? And Jack says, I'd like to thank you for your friendship.
Jesus Christ.
Hannibal says, friendship is being understood with absolute clarity. And Jack says, well, in this, that is something that I'm experiencing right now. And as he tries to draw his gun, Hannibal throws the knife, and then we see kind of the same fight play out as we saw in the first episode. Very brutal, very bloody. Same,
Jack is bear.
Jack
he has a coat.
Jack is a bear. He has a coat. Thank you.
He has a coat.
Shout outs to, do we know offhand who did that YouTube? Because I don't think we,
hold on.
I don't think we did.
Let me check Blue Sky, because I posted it on Blue Sky. And I will tell you in a second. But describe what has been put out in the universe.
Yeah, somebody made like a little animation to our commentary on the first episode of season 2 on this first fight, which was very, very fun to watch and to listen back to. I was trying to find the person in our Discord that did it, and I'm not logged into the right YouTube, so it's going to take me forever.
It's Anami on YouTube.
Okay.
ANNAMI.
Yes.
All of a sudden, things just spring into violence. Jack just goes. You're talking in my ear while talking in my ear. It's great.
And yeah, we basically see this fight. It's somehow even more brutal the second time, I think. I don't know how.
Yeah,
I don't know
because we understand the consequences, like the what's actually at stake here. Well, so okay, to bring it back to the Daredevil thing, you know how my biggest complaint about the first episode is that I didn't feel like I had enough emotional investment in this new series to be able to care about it. Like, that's something that I said, and it's not because I didn't care about the characters, because I clearly do, but I didn't have enough investment in the series to be able to really care about what was going on. I feel like that's kind of what happens in the first episode, where we're like, okay, so clearly this is bad. This is like a really awful situation. We care about Jack and Hannibal. We don't want either of them to die. But then here we know everything that this fight means. We know that Jack is by himself. That was one of our biggest issues. Why is Jack there by himself?
Yes.
Now we know why. And it's even more heartbreaking. And so because we have this whole season to get to this point, we actually care a lot more about this fight. We're invested.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, we know that Jack is on his own. We didn't know that before. Like, he's got no backup here. Like, you would assume, I think in the first episode, without even really talking about it, that Jack is an FBI agent. Like, he's the head of this department. He's got people on the way behind him. But no, he's completely alone. He has no backup here. So when he gets stabbed in the neck with this piece of glass and gets trapped in the pantry, it's live or die. Like, there's nobody coming. And we also see this from a different perspective. We see Alana on the outside, and as she hears this chaos from above, she calls 911 and says that that she's heard gunshots, and she pulls out her gun. And she moves slowly through the house, seeing or hearing all of this violence, and eventually coming upon the side where she sees Hannibal flinging himself against the pantry door to try to break it down so he can get to Jack. And then she calls out to him, and this moment where Hannibal just looks at her and she says, "Where's Jack?" And he just whispers, "In the pantry." I can't even do it justice. Like, I don't even know.
It's because she whispers, "Where's Jack?" Because like she's clearly having trouble like finding her footing, right? I don't think that Alana has ever been in a situation like this in her life, and so like this is clearly a very challenging moment for her. And Hannibal matches her energy the way that he's been doing this entire time, right? Like matching her energy for their relationship, for Will, for everything. And he's like, "In the pantry."
It's so good.
This is so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Oh, man,
like, why is this funny? Why am I laughing when all this is happening?
It's the delivery. Like, it's that moment in a scary movie that just like it's just like, this is so ridiculous. Like, it's just a ridiculous thing that is happening. We should also note that Hannibal looks like he's got he's wearing a button-down shirt and slacks. His hair is messy. He's covered in blood. His shirt is askew. He's holding 2 knives, one in each hand. And he looks so good and hot right now. I'm not saying I'm questioning myself. I'm just saying. He looks very good and very hot right now.
You sound like a lesbian talking about Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that he looks particularly good here because the human veil is gone. Like, he is fully himself for the first time since we've met him. And you said something to me yesterday when we were like messaging about this. You said he's at his most monstrous. And that is objectively hot in this moment. Yeah. Because like, to kind of bring back the whole Achilles Patroclus thing, like he is literally like Achilles battling, knowing that he has nothing else to lose because he's lost Patroclus.
Yes. He's too hot. He says that it's I can't remember the exact wording. I didn't write it down. It's something like delightful and terrifying to see Alana here. But basically says like, "I was hoping not to say goodbye to you. Like, you may have found that rude." And he starts walking towards her, and of course she yells at him to stop. And she says that she can't believe how blind she was. And he says, "Well, in your defense, I worked very, very hard to blind you." And he gives her a choice. Like, if you walk away right now, like I won't call on you. Or you can stay here and you can die. Like, and he tells her, "Be blind, Alana, not brave." And I love this moment of him, because I think this is honesty. Like, I think if Alana literally walked out right now, he would not call on her. He wouldn't come back to kill her. So.
No, I fully agree with that. Like, I think, especially before we jump in to like what's about to happen, I really want to highlight this moment because I really think that it's going to change Alana fundamentally. And we know that something else is going to happen to Alana that is probably going to have some severe consequences. But I think that this is the moment that changes her. This is her becoming. Like, she literally has to choose here between like killing Hannibal or not helping Jack. But again, past the question of morality is the question of how she views herself. Is she willing to let go the things that Hannibal has done to her specifically? And we know the choice that she makes. We know that this choice is going to change her, not unlike Will's choice of killing Garrett Jacob Hobbs. Because he, again, like, I'm coming back to that, but like, he could have just shot Garrett Jacob Hobbs once, but he chose to kill him by emptying his clip.
Yes.
Right? And I think this is what's happening with Alana here. She is making the choice to shoot Hannibal. That was her moment.
I agree. And she pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And the gun clicks because does not have any bullets. And Hannibal says, "I took your bullets." This is probably the one moment in this episode that I think is a little TV-y.
Yeah.
It's a little like,
But I was okay with it. I was like, okay, sure, whatever.
yeah, totally. I'm actually kind of fine with it. I just want to point it out because it's like she wouldn't have been able to rack. Like, there's just, I don't know. Like, I try not to let.
I know. Not to be all like the rats should have been in Muse's den. But
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
the rats should have been in Muse's den.
It's definitely one of those things of where like this is. I mean, like Hannibal operates on a level of mystical realism that doesn't. He should just like he's basically a supervillain anyway. Like if he took her bullets, he took her bullets. She didn't notice. Like that's fine. I don't.
Right.
But it was.
That's the thing. Like I've never handled a handgun, so I don't know. But I assume that there are mechanisms, especially within like, current handguns that don't really allow you to do certain things unless there are bullets in them. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I know?
I mean, like, and also just like the weight.
So I wanted to say that, but again, I was like, is it like again, having never handled a handgun, like I don't know,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
feel I'm like, but I think it also shows like how unknowledgeable Alana is about handguns.
And that's definitely like, because if we remember, like she was given this by Will and then like told to go and practice. Like it's obviously she's not had any formal training or anything like that. So
exactly,
all of this is fine. It's just I took your bullets. Like just seems a little.
I know.
It seems it's stuck out as probably the hammiest moment in otherwise like extremely non-ham episode.
Right.
She runs up the stairs. He sets his knives down on a chair. In a very telling moment. Because I think he knows what's about to happen. She runs into his bedroom and locks the door and very quickly reloads her gun and aims it at the door where she thinks he's following, and she shoots it a couple of times and yells like, I found more bullets. And then from the side of the bedroom, from her left-hand side, we see this shape emerging from the shadows, and Hannibal obviously knew what was up there and what was about to happen, but Alana had no idea. And as the shape comes out of the shadows into the light, it resolves into Abigail Hobbs, alive and looking very well, if not distressed.
Missing an ear.
An ear. And she says, I'm so sorry. And she immediately pushes Alana out of the window. And she flies down in this moment of shock with glass raining all around her. As she is, obviously shocked by the push, but also shocked by by Abigail's reappearance. And she lands on the ground below.
Yeah, this is the shattering of the teacup for Alana in this moment, right? Yeah. Allegedly, Jeremy.
Not allegedly. I've seen them.
Very allegedly.
I have them saved on my phone.
I had a very strong reaction to this moment, apparently, during the live watch. Because I obviously, when we saw Abigail, I just kind of screamed, like, I knew it! And I was just so proud of myself and so, like, vindicated. And then the next moment, I'm like screaming in shock when she pushes Alana through the window. And like there may or may not be screenshots floating around
there are.
The internet.
There are. I actively saved them, shared them with Autumn. So later that day. This was a great moment. Obviously, like, I want to congratulate you quite a bit because, and on behalf of most of the people that I know that have been talking on the Discord and the spoiler chat, which obviously you don't venture into.
No, I'm not allowed.
Everybody, and they haven't even heard some of the episodes yet. But I've been giving them glimpses of some of the stuff that you've been saying. Obviously, you've been talking about it and during your reactions to the episode, so they've seen some of your stuff. They haven't heard. I think the episode that came out today is. I don't even know which episode it is, to be honest with you. I have no clue.
I don't know anymore, but I know that somebody
it's the horse episode.
Name.
It's the horse episode.
Oh, it's the horse episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So like people haven't heard you kind of come to the conclusion that Abigail is alive and the reasons that you have for that. But like you have slowly but steadily like put the pieces together in a way that just shows how I think insightful and intelligent and how well your media literacy works because it's I mean, like, you put it together well before I did. Like, this was a complete shock to me. I had no idea this was coming. And, there's an aspect to there's probably a part of this where like if you were just watching this, maybe it would have caught you more by surprise because you're not talking about it for 2.5 hours and watching it two or three times. But at the same time, like you did it, and so I want to give you some credit for that because it's a powerful thing. It's a very insightful thing, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for it. So.
Well, that's so nice. Thank you so much. But I kind of want to like shift that to the show because like I wouldn't have guessed it if the show hadn't put it together so incredibly well. You know what I mean? And again, like also having conversations with you has really helped in deepening my understanding of this story. But like this show is just so well done and it makes sense. And I hope that this show, when other creators watch this show, they understand that like telling a story that is surprising doesn't necessarily mean going off the rails and doing something crazy.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's okay to plant little seeds of doubt throughout and like, it's not a bad thing if your fans guess where your story is going. It means you're telling the story properly, right? Like, I find that there's so much in like current like storytelling where people are like, oh, we just really want to go to a place that fans don't expect. Like it becomes about like surprising the fans instead of like actually just telling a story. I don't know. I have a lot of issues.
it's the shock and awe method of making television, which I think like I think a good example of that is Ryan Murphy, right? Like we're gonna do these off the wall crazy things to just do them without a lot of backup and characterization and things like that. Like
that's my issue.
I would far more like characters to exist like this show, right? Like to exist and to interact in such a way that give me hints of things that are coming down the line that are twists that may be picked up on, may not be picked up on by a very astute reader, right, or astute person.
And to allow characters to not know where they are in certain things, right? I think one of the beautiful things about this show, particularly this episode, is how clear it is that Will doesn't know where he stands. Or maybe he finds out, but it's too late at that point.
And not to become a parody of myself, but everybody take a drink because I'm going to bring up Dark Souls. But
yes,
this is one of the reasons that Dark Souls made such an impact on gaming in general, is because the story was laid out for you, but it was told in bits and pieces that the person playing the game had to connect, and it's in such a way that like a lot of people played the game, finished the game, didn't really have a clue as to why they were doing anything, what their characters were motivated by doing. So they would go online and they would see people making these videos, these lore videos, and go like, oh my God, I can't believe that I missed all this story. But I always go back to, I've told this story a bunch. There was a woman, she went by K Plays on the internet. Unfortunately, I think her channel is no longer active. But her boyfriend encouraged her to play it blind. And so she was just, recording herself playing Dark Souls, putting videos on YouTube, and that was it. And she managed to, just with like astute observation and reading through things, managed to like put together pieces of the story and like things to do in the game that otherwise you would not have known unless you read a wiki on it. And that's good storytelling. That's what Hannibal has done up to this point. To bring it back to, not to make this completely about Dark Souls. That's what Hannibal has done here, is like give you the pieces to put together. As you said, like they showed you with Miriam Lass, like, they took an arm, like what's an ear, right? Like they showed you with Freddy Lowndes, like we're willing to fake deaths. And then like, obviously now, you're still wrong about Chilton. So I could,
I mean, listen.
But yeah,
maybe I am, and that's okay. But I think I would just love Chilton to reappear at some point, the same way that Gideon reappeared, and I was just like, oh, that's nice.
Absolutely great. So Alana gets pushed out this window. And she's on the ground as Will pulls up in a cab, which I don't know why I find it very funny, but I do. He very quickly like covers her with his jacket and like calls 911, but she tells him like to go in, like Jack's inside. You have to go save her, go save Jack. And this is where the music kicks up and it's going to be, we're going to have like this one song for the rest of the episode, and it is absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking, even outside of the context of the show. And I love this piece of music so much. I can't talk about how great it is and how well it fits for these moments coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's you know that shit's about to get real on Hannibal when they start playing the classical music.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it. This is their needle drop, I guess. Will basically shows up to Hannibal's house and relives the day that they pulled up at Jacob Hobbs's house.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Alana is dying on the front porch, just like Mrs. Garrett Jacob Hobbs was dying on the front porch. And obviously everything else that's about to happen, right? But like this is round 2 for Will of seeing that.
The callbacks are so good because they're not just being like, "Hey, do you remember this?" Right? Like this is meaningful. This is
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He goes inside Hannibal's home. We see the rain in the sky kind of turning into blood, which turns into like Jack bleeding through the floor of the pantry. I like this because we've actually seen this before. Like we saw this with Beverly when she spilled the wine or whatever. I just thought this was a neat little thing. And he's trying to call Bella. And he's obviously like not long for the world, it looks like.
Right.
And we see Will kind of moving through these rooms. He sees blood seeping under the door of the pantry. And then he turns around and behind him is Abigail.
That's when I started crying.
Same.
I sobbed. But in that moment, like if there are screenshots of me, like that is the moment that I put my face in my hands and I started sobbing.
You were completely like encased in blanket care. Like you had
yes, it's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you were totally blanketed up on all sides. You had blanket armor on completely.
I had blanket armor. It didn't help, but it helped. So.
Abigail's crying, and Will is obviously completely stunned in this moment.
Yeah, of course.
And she says, "I didn't know what else to do, so I just did what he told me."
Sob. I have nothing to say.
Yeah, this is so much. This is so much. And he says, "Where is he?" And her eyes kind of look over his shoulder, and he turns around, and there's Hannibal. And this brokenhearted, filled with regret, "you were supposed to leave" from Will is so powerful.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to. If there's a lot of pauses in this episode, everybody, it's not because like we're getting disconnected. It's just because we are literally just gobsmacked. Like our gobs are completely smacked right now. We don't know how to talk in this moment.
I really do think that like this "you were supposed to leave" is very revealing of his intentions, and again, maybe despite himself, in this episode. Like to me, that is like the foundation of my theory about him warning him about like what he's saying to him is actually a warning and not entrapment in this episode.
Yeah.
And that's not true for the rest of the season, right? To be very clear, but I do think that in this episode, Will's allegiances change or crystallize very much to be with Hannibal.
Yeah, absolutely.
In spite of himself. And I want to continue saying that because I think that's really the inner conflict in Will. And I know that like, we talk about the morality of it. We talk about Jack and Hannibal, but I don't think that this is what Will is wrestling with. I think Will is really wrestling with, how can I possibly care this much about that man?
Throughout this entire thing, I think it's really easy for you to believe that Will is the protagonist in this, and for the protagonist to be the one that's on the side of law and order. So, like, I feel like if you the surface read on this is that Will has been slowly but surely setting Hannibal up, and that he's completely trying to catch Hannibal in the act of murder. And now he has done so. But this moment where he says, "You were supposed to leave," like it pulls all of that apart. And then you realize, like, if you do that deep dive on everything that he's been going through the last few episodes, he doesn't know his own motivations. He doesn't, like, it wasn't until he called him that he probably knew he was going to call him, right? Like, we talk about Hannibal doing things for the sake of doing them because he wants to see what happens. And in a certain way, Will is doing that here too, of just not for the sake of seeing what's happening, but just because he can't control himself he can't stop himself from doing it.
From trying to protect Hannibal.
Exactly.
Even though he doesn't want to, because he's still, again, I'm going to continue. He's still harboring a lot of resentment for what he did to him and what he thought he did to Abigail.
Yeah. Although,
right?
Obviously some of that has to be kind of up in the air and confused right now, because like if one of the big reasons that he hates, that he justifies denying his feelings of Hannibal is because of what he did to Abigail, and Abigail is standing directly behind him, like where does that leave him?
Exactly. And this is why, so this is where I get kind of frustrated with these two men just on a human level, because this is why they needed to actually communicate and not talk in codes. So we know that for a lot of reasons, they chose to communicate in codes, right? Hannibal, because he didn't want to get caught, and Will, I think, because it was just easier for him to talk in codes so that it was harder for Hannibal to discern his motivations. So Will was trying to get Hannibal to leave in this episode, and Hannibal was trying to get Will to leave with him. But Will doesn't know that Abigail is still alive.
Yeah.
But Hannibal wanted Will to, like, pick him, choose him, love him, in spite of what Will thought Hannibal had done to Abigail, right? Like, Hannibal wanted Will's unconditional love. And for Will, one of the conditions of his love was what he had done to Abigail. But he didn't know that he hadn't actually done anything to Abigail except cut off her ear. You know what I mean? And it's just like... But how, of course, with the information that Will had, he was justified in doing what he was doing. And it's just, I don't know. This hurts, man.
It comes down to our secondary theme, I think, of forgiveness. If Will was willing to forgive Hannibal in sacrificing Abigail, then he knows that Will would forgive him anything, right? Like he knows that Will's feelings for him are strong enough so that they can be together, that they can live this lifestyle together. And it
was the final test.
And as a reward for that, here's Abigail, right? Like you forgave me for it, and therefore and then I'm going to erase it. And he
was training him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Remember that talk about like the hunting and all of that, like with the guy from the horse episode that came out today.
Yep. The lion and the and the wolf.
The bear and the wolf.
The bear and the wolf, yeah.
Exactly. And this is what Hannibal is trying to do. He's trying to make sure that Will... Well, and this is also typical abuser behavior, right? Like trying to see how far you can push the boundary and trying to always push it further and further of the things that can be forgiven, right? Yeah.
Hannibal reaches out and strokes Will's face and says, oh no. He reaches out. I want to make sure I get the order of operations correct. He reaches out. He strokes Will's face. The fact that Will allows this to happen, I think, is very telling. Like, he doesn't put...
I thought they were going to kiss.
I mean, 10 years later, right? Like, I think...
Yeah. Like, if one of them had been a woman, they would have kissed.
Yes. Yeah. And he pulls him close as if he was going to kiss him. And instead of kissing him, he uses this knife, this kind of curved... I thought this was a boning knife. Some people looked it up online. It's not a boning knife at all.
It's a boning knife, Jeremy.
I thought... I know. Stabbing
him with a boning knife?
I meant like a
You made a sex joke.
I did. I walked right into that without even meaning to. I meant like a fishing, like a knife you would use to debone a fish is what I was going for. But I said a boning knife. Of course.
A boning knife.
Which is a knife with boning properties, obviously.
I used to stab him in the belly.
Jesus Christ.
I love it. Excellent.
But yeah, he opens up Will's stomach. And just blood immediately starts pouring out of his body. And he tells Will, time did reverse. The teacup I shattered did come together. A place for Abigail was made in your world. That place was made for all of us together. And he's saying this to rebuke Will's intentions here. To say basically like, you're the one that fucked this up, not me. This is your fault. I brought all of this stuff together for you, and you were the one that pushed it away. You're the one that shattered this teacup again.
Hannibal. Yeah, he's really absolving himself of all responsibility in this, right?
Absolutely.
Which is an issue for me because I do think that he holds some of the responsibility.
A lot of
not all of it, but certainly a lot of it, right? Can we get to the rare gift line?
Absolutely. So Hannibal says, I wanted to surprise you, and you wanted to surprise me. I let you know me, see me. I gave you a rare gift, but you didn't want it. And
sorry.
This
I have no control over my body anymore.
And through like a choked voice, Will says, didn't I? And I just Will trying to say no, actually I did at this moment of I did want you. I did want to see who you were. I did want to accept you, like almost trying to, and we're going to talk about forgiveness more in a moment, but like almost trying to ask forgiveness for turning him in basically, or trying to set him up. And it's just, it's this moment of beauty, of this horrible, horrible beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I'm having trouble. When I was taking notes, I had trouble putting this into words, but like I feel like that's like what's described here is love. But so bear with me. But that's the risk that comes with love and vulnerability, right? It's that the other person might not reciprocate our feelings. When we open up to somebody, we let them see us. It is for some people, and I mean, arguably for a lot of people, it is a rare gift, right? Because we all keep certain masks in front of other people, but some people just don't want that gift. And in this case, like I said, Hannibal wanted to love him. Hannibal wanted Will to love him in spite of what he had led him to believe he had done to Abigail.
Yes.
And the love that Will gave back was different from what Hannibal was hoping for. And because I am still arguing that Will showed love to Hannibal, because Will made sure to cover all of Hannibal's tracks and even gave him an out. He didn't kill him when he easily could have. And I think that he really thought that this is what Hannibal wanted, the out, the possibility of leaving. But again, like he misjudged Hannibal's feelings for him, and Hannibal is misjudging Will's feelings for himself. Hannibal kept Abigail alive, which he thought was what Will wanted. But what Will really wanted was to never have had her disappear in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a mismatch in the way that they show love in this moment. And that's also really, really relatable, because I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people where like you love somebody, they love you too, but the way that you love each other is just not the way that you want to be loved.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
You can love somebody and love them really badly, right?
Yeah. 100%. Like you can be wrong for that person, or that person can be wrong
absolutely.
for you, even if both of you, want the best for the other person. You can still be bad for them. You can be wrong for them. And obviously, like Will and Hannibal bring out some of the worst with each other. Like obviously, Hannibal's bringing out the worst in Will.
Of course, yeah.
And Will, you could argue, is bringing out some of the most monstrous that Hannibal has ever been. Up until this moment, Hannibal, from what we understand, Hannibal has really limited his killing to people that were rude. And he's been very almost dispassionate about killing, versus like what's about to happen here.
It's really personal.
Which is extremely personal, which is extremely passionate, which is extremely emotional. And we even see here, like, Hannibal says, like, you would take my life, and Will says, never, I wouldn't do that. It was like, you would take my freedom, then you would confine me to a prison cell. And he looks over to Abigail, and he looks back and says, do you believe that you can change me the way that I changed you? And Will says, I already have. And
you changed me, Dean. Like, again, I don't know.
Hannibal follows this by saying, fate and circumstance has returned us to this moment when the teacup shatters. I forgive you, Will. Will you forgive me? And he's about to do something horrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
but before we get there, it's really hard to talk about this scene just because there's so much happening. Like, just as a like brief look behind the curtain here, we had 9 pages of notes, and 3 of them were on these last 10 minutes, which is bonkers, right? Like it's anyway, it's unhinged. It's unhinged. Brian, full arm under your bed. So I just want to take a moment here to kind of like call out Hannibal on his bullshit is the only way that I can put it, because it's not fate and circumstance that brought them back here. It's Hannibal. Like, if I had to write a song for the musical Hannibal, it would be It's Hannibal, right? Because it's not fate and circumstance that kidnapped Abigail and made her look dead. It was Hannibal. It's not fate and circumstance that hid Will's encephalitis. It's Hannibal. And this is true for almost everything else that's happened so far. And Hannibal has like these delusions of grandeur where he thinks that his actions are equivalent to those of fate. And that makes sense to me, because like this man is constantly comparing himself to God. And so, I don't know, this line just kills me because he's really absolving himself of all responsibility for what is happening, while simultaneously punishing Will for the decisions that he made, not knowing the full picture.
That's the thing that gets me. Is he talks about fate and circumstances, when in reality it's very much the decisions that Will and Hannibal have made have led them to here. It's not fate and circumstances. Like it's very, very specifically like the terroir, which, it's everything that they have done throughout since they've met one another. It's everything that they have, every way that they've interacted with one another has led them to this moment. And that's not fate. That's not circumstance. That's decisions. No. That's purposeful interactions. That is motivations. That is hiding Abigail. That is trying to bait a trap to catch him in the process of killing Mason. And it's even worse because as he says this, he pulls. Number one, Will realizes what he's about to do, because Will immediately starts begging no.
I hadn't realized what was about to happen at that point. I was completely blindsided by it.
I don't think the viewer has at all. Like, I'd be very surprised if anybody was like, oh yeah, I see what's about to happen. But he calls Abigail over, and Abigail like holds his hand and he brings her to his chest. And then without really any kind of pretext, or not without waiting or anything, he just slits her throat, and just blood
in the same exact spot that Garrett Jacob Hobbs did. Like it's,
and we're brought back to that moment where Will found her on the floor, choking on her own blood. Except this time he's even less useful. Like and they're just in this huge pool of blood together as he like struggles to reach out for her, and Hannibal leans down and says, "You can make it all go away. You can just wade into the quiet of the stream. Like, close your eyes and, just let it all go away."
He's basically doing what he thought Will was doing to him, right? Because he's like, oh, this is what you wanted. You wanted me to live in agony in a prison cell and just like go away in my mind palace. Well, then there you go.
Yeah.
Like live in agony with this and make it go away.
Here's your agony, right? Like you were going to give this to me,
Yes.
but now I'm giving it to you. Yes.
And that's the thing. Like Hannibal says, I forgive you, Will. But like, can we talk about that for a second? Like, I mean, I have a strange, as somebody who has meditated a lot about forgiveness, and who's listened to a lot of like religious discourse, particularly Christian discourse about forgiveness versus like, I guess Jewish discourse about forgiveness and how different those two ideas are. I am absolutely certain that what Hannibal is doing here is not forgiveness. And I don't think he has to forgive Will. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that forgiveness is something that you owe anybody, even yourself. Like, you don't need to forgive people. But this is not forgiveness. This is revenge, right? And it's revenge through family annihilation. Like, there's really no other way to put it. Like, he was upset that Will betrayed him, and so he killed Jack, he killed Alana, or like he made him believe that that's what was going to happen, right? Like he killed Jack, killed Alana, killed Abigail, and killed Will. Or at least, like I said, he's trying to kill all of these people.
Yes.
And I was reading up on family annihilators yesterday, and oh my God, if anybody looks at my search history while doing this podcast, they would be very concerned. But like looking up family annihilators, like first of all, most of them are men who either feel like their family is in danger from a perceived threat, and so they decide to kill them in order to spare them the danger. Or they're going through like social or financial ruin, and so they want to spare their family the indignity, quote unquote, because of course death is better than indignity. Or they want to punish their spouse. And this is what's happening here. Like Hannibal found out that Will betrayed him, if we want to think about it as like cheating on him with Jack. And so to punish him, he kills Abigail. Like that's what's happening. I cannot see another interpretation of this moment.
No, I'm right there with you, because like what exactly does Hannibal mean by, I forgive you, Will? Because forgiveness is, I forgive you. I have made my peace with whatever way that you have harmed me. Right. But that's not, as you said, that's not what happens here. He says, I forgive you, Will. Can you forgive me? And then he does something horrifying in retaliation. And, just to hammer the point home, that's not forgiveness. Like having that level of retaliation, especially watching your kind of pseudo-adopted daughter that you already thought died.
I keep thinking about Katie in this moment of like, they're not family.
Yeah, they're not family. But like having this moment, and from what we understand of Will, this moment with Garrett Jacob Hobbs of murdering Garrett Jacob Hobbs, trying to save Abigail, drastically impacted his life. Right? Like this was the moment possibly when he started having these dreams and these issues that we've seen through the last two seasons that we thought were first were encephalitis, but are not. This is the moment, like he's reliving this experience. And it's much, much worse. So Hannibal is giving him like the worst thing imaginable and saying, I forgive you. Will you forgive me for doing this? And I just like it's such a monstrous act, which is what I texted you yesterday. Like, I think there's an aspect of this where you look at it and you're like, Hannibal is betrayed, so he's kind of lashing out. And sure, some of that is happening, but like in reality, like Hannibal is shutting down and he's going back to his most monstrous self. Like this is the Hannibal that was able to, you know, meticulously take somebody apart and put them on either side of a bus, of a school bus. You know, this is the person that can break a human down into bits and pieces and feed them to their social friends. Like this is the monster that Hannibal is in this moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm with you. Like I think your point about family annihilation is spot on. I wouldn't have used those terms at all, but I think you nailed it. It's
also, you know, like, again, I've made a lot of jokes on this. I'm realizing that all of the jokes that I made through this podcast are kind of like playing against me right now. But a lot of the jokes that I made about like, I can forgive, or I can forgive cannibalism, or I can condone cannibalism or whatever. Like, I think that this moment is kind of meant specifically for people like me who are like, oh, well, whatever, he's a cannibal, but it doesn't really matter because whatever. Like, he's a cannibal. And he's doing this. Like, there's no... Like, it's really hard to empathize with what he's doing. And I can understand the lashing out and the whatever. But, like, again, being mad at Will for not having guessed that, like, he hadn't actually killed the woman that he made everybody believe. Like, he made sure that people were blind. And it's like, what do you mean my actions have consequences?
Well, and I think it goes a step further, because it's not even like he's punishing Will for not guessing. He's punishing Will for not trusting, right?
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
And it's
for not loving him in spite of that.
Going back to your in spite of, absolutely, yeah. And it's so frustrating on both sides, because like you like, as you said, like if they had just not talked in code, like maybe they could have gotten to a certain point. And it's fascinating to me, and I'll just bring this up now because I think it fits here more than anything. I talked earlier, like, this is where Red Dragon starts out. Like, when we meet Will Graham, he has been gutted by Hannibal. And has had, like, PTSD from Hannibal, from finding out who Hannibal was. None of this other stuff really has existed, and which is wild to me. Like, so as I'm watching this, like, as somebody who has read the books and who's very familiar with, like, the source material, like, I'm watching this, I'm like, I just can't believe that I would have assumed they would have started the show like this. Like, but instead we're, like, not ending the show because we have another season, but, like, in my mind, like, I don't know if we knew we had another season yet or not. Instead we're ending the show with where the book begins, which is a complete reversal, which is kind of mind-boggling. So,
fan fiction is excellent sometimes, you know?
It is, absolutely. We're close.
And also, like, the trauma for Abigail, because, like, we're not talking about Abigail here, but, like, this poor girl at this point, like, anyway.
Like, what do you think she's been doing all of this time, like, with Hannibal? It's got to be, it's got to be, like, her mind has to be so befuddled, and, like, you could see how upset she was when she saw Alana, and how brokenhearted she was when she saw Will, like, making Will realize that she betrayed him. And even though I don't hold Abigail responsible for really anything that's happened to her, or anything that she did. Like, what's the worst thing that Abigail did? Like, throw Alana out of a window? Like,
well, she did kill that guy.
She did.
Oh yeah, it's true.
But I mean, that was actually, like, legitimately self-defense. And
I mean, yes, but the gutted him like a fish may not have been, right? There was a point to which it was self-defense, and then there was a point where it wasn't.
Yeah, Hannibal turned it into something that it wasn't in her mind.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But I agree with you. I mean, I'm being... The devil doesn't need an advocate, but apparently I was wanting to be his advocate today. Like, the devil being Hannibal, literally.
Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes we have a lot of fun with it. Will crawls over to Abigail, like, trying to hold his hand on her throat, and it's just not working. Like, they were just completely drenched in blood. There's blood all over the floor. Like, it's just it's a grotesque scene. Not to be like the rats should have been in Muse's den, but, like, that place must stink right now. It's gotta not. Anyway. It's not gotta not be good. I've been watching The Pit. And that's a show that you should that is intense about its medical stuff, and is
I want to watch it. Yeah, it's on my to watch list.
yeah, it's an intense show. I think the finale is next week, so like wait till Wednesday or Thursday and you'll just be able to blitz it.
There you go. So I can just binge it in a day.
We watched. It's not normally like we don't really binge a lot of stuff, but we were like, let's try The Pit. Like people have talked about it, and like we'll just have it on in the background, and like watched 4 episodes in a row. So like
Nice.
one of those.
Oh, okay, all right, cool. Yeah, my mom told me about it, and she's the one who introduced me to the BBC Sherlock, and so I was like, yeah, maybe I should watch it.
There you go. We see Hannibal walk outside as he stands beside Alana, and he looks up in the sky, and we see like the rain. Obviously, this like refreshing downpour, like cleaning the blood, and to me, this is like a moment of rebirth for him. This is a moment of, he talked about like leaving this life behind, and this is that moment, right? Like this is, and he doesn't do anything with Alana. Instead, he just walks ahead.
I just love that visual of Hannibal like being completely drenched
it's
in
so
rainwater.
good. It's so good.
Like especially after realizing that Will had changed him, and Will and water, and anyway. Yum.
We kind of check in on some people. Will and Abigail are still like pouring blood. Yeah. Will collapses. He can't really do anything. Jack has managed to get out of his cell phone and call Bella, but can't speak.
I think that part broke my heart even more than anything else in this moment.
And
because I was thinking about Bella on the other end.
Yeah, knowing that her husband has put himself in danger, and
that he is potentially dying in this moment, and like she's gonna have to die alone now. Fuck all of this. I hated it.
Yeah. Imagine like not wanting to leave Jack behind.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hannibal
I was very angry. I felt a lot of anger in my body in that moment.
Hannibal walks away. As he does so, he puts a coat on. So I never noticed this before. Someone in the chat, as we did our live watch, pointed out that this was Will's coat.
Yeah.
The script doesn't...
he picks up from Alana.
The script doesn't mention this. And I've watched it twice since the live watch. And we don't actually see him pick it up from Alana. Like when he walks away from Alana, we see Alana on the ground and the coat is still on her.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But that said, it is the exact same fucking coat. Like it is...
Okay.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there, right? Like so it is very much exactly what he was wearing at the time. That when it was exactly what Will was wearing when he got on site. And I think it's very meaningful that he puts it on. I think it's...
I have a lot of thoughts about the fuck-ass coat.
Okay.
Because first off, it's obviously giving Dean Winchester carrying Castiel's trench coat for like a year across the United States while having to change cars to avoid the Leviathan. That's one thing. Second, I know that this is meant to, or like if he does take the coat away from Alana, right? If that's what happens, then it's probably meant to be like a shocking thing, right? That he takes the coat away from this potentially dying woman in the rain that was, this coat, this one thing that was protecting her from the elements. And he just takes it away from her because he doesn't care about her. But like, honestly, like, that was probably the least shocking part of the episode for me because of course he doesn't care about her. He was using her. Like, and I've made my feelings clear about this.
And also, we're like, what's a coat going to do for Alana at this point? Like, I mean, like if whatever has happened to Alana is happened to Alana by this point, like, where is the 911 people that she called? Because like it has been. I know it feels like it's been at 4 hours since this phone call. So
it's only been 6 minutes, Jeremy.
I know. The fact that there's still episode left that we have to talk about is insane.
I know, unbelievable. But also like I think it's really meant to show how little humanity he has in him in this moment, right? Because like the one thing that he could have left for Alana, he didn't care, right? Like, it's like, no, I don't care. Like I just...
Well, you could argue that like when I talked about the moment of rebirth as he's looking up into the rain, like that's the rain like washing this human veil off, right? Like this is going to be him embracing the inner monster, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
we don't know. Nobody knows what happens in season 3. Nobody could possibly know.
No, of course nobody knows, but I do love that. I do love that. And the third thing that I want to mention about the fuck-ass coat is that that's the coat that Will bought, or at least that he started wearing after he got out of prison and started spending time with Hannibal in the horse episode.
Oh, really? Is that the same one that he went to the mall to get?
Yes, that's the one that he went to the mall to get. And like at the time, I kind of remember, you know, that we were saying, because he's also like in a stable in that moment. And I was like, he would have been a lot more in his element if he had worn like his usual clothes. But no, he's wearing clothes that like he thinks Hannibal is going to like more. And like we were talking about how that's a visual way to show that like Will was kind of becoming more like Hannibal, or tricking Hannibal into thinking that he was becoming more like him. And now Hannibal took the coat. Hannibal took the fuck-ass coat after he realized that Will had changed him. After he was drenched in water. Like the thing that's been representative of Will since season 1, episode 1. And now he's wearing the fuck-ass coat that Will got to appeal to him more. And my voice is getting higher and higher pitched. And I'm just like, they're idiots in love. If they had just talked to each other, none of this would have happened.
I love the fuck-ass coat. Where does that come from? Is that...
I don't know.
Is that just
the
fuck-ass coat? Okay, good.
It's just the fuck... It's in Taylor Swift's fandom, they talk a lot about like the fuck-ass whatever. Okay. Like the fuck-ass Bob, or like the whatever. And I was just like, this is the fuck-ass coat.
That's very funny to me. So, I don't even know what happens now. So Will, we go back into Hannibal's kitchen where Will looks over and he sees the stag. And the stag is wounded and breathing, and then obviously dying, and then dead. And the whole scene fades to black, and we get the music that is very common to Hannibal and Silence of the Lambs. And now I'm seeing in your notes that you were unclear as to what the stag represents. So I guess this is a good time to talk about it, isn't it? Because like I said earlier, when we first start seeing the stag, to me it was a representation of Will's doubts about Hannibal.
Fluffy is very sad that we're having this conversation.
Fluffy is sounding a lot lamenting. Like a Rosie when the FedEx guy shows up. And we are past Penny's 2.5-hour podcast limit, so she is like,
of course.
I'm having to just scratch her neck, so she won't move around.
Penny, I get that.
But yeah, I thought the stag was kind of a representation of Will's doubts about Hannibal, like his subconscious doubts, or if not necessarily about Hannibal, then about the Chesapeake Ripper, right? And it became clear, like as the show moved on, like it was more to do with himself. Like he was the stag in some way, and Hannibal was somehow controlling the stag, or whispering into the chrysalis of the what the stag would become. And we saw like a literal rebirth scene. But at the beginning of this episode, we see Will take a hunting rifle and shoot the stag, and at the end of it, we see the stag dead, and it seems to be linked directly to Will. And I guess I'm just curious as to any of your thoughts on this. And obviously, people listening, rude.eats.podcast@gmail.com. Like, send us your thoughts.
I agree with you. When I first saw the stag, I thought that it represented Hannibal, or the danger that Hannibal represented for Will. And then there's also moments where I was like, oh no, it actually represents Will. And then I was like, okay, but there's also moments where it represents like the part of Will that is like Hannibal-esque, right? The monstrousness in Will. But now I'm also like, does the stag represent like their relationship, their family maybe? Because I also remember like the first time that we talked about the stag, I said that stags usually are meant in tarot, or anyway, I have like this deck of cards that I use as a tarot deck, and stags often represent like masculinity and patriarchy, and not like patriarchy, the power structure, but like literal male kin within a family. And to see it die or come close to dying, because again, I don't know that we're gonna I don't think the stag. I don't know. We'll see. But to come to kind of see the stag dying or close to dying in an episode about family annihilation and like the annihilation of Will's chosen family is so very evocative to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm also trying to like fold in the times that we've seen the man stag, right? Like,
yes, exactly.
There's moments,
or Will transforming into a stag, right? His transformation
and like
his becoming.
Hannibal getting on the stand, and you know, we see the black face and the stag, and then like also kind of like thinking about Alana being like the inked up version of Alana that we saw, and how she describes that as poisonous in this episode.
And the stag is made out of that poisonous thing, right? Like it's not like that was one thing where I was like, does it have feathers? And like this whole meaning that was later given to birds and to songbirds and birds in love and whatnot. Like,
and I was going to bring that up. Like, we keep calling it a stag, but really it's an amalgam of like several different animals, right? Like it's already a combination. It's already gone through some sort of transformation. Like it's not a natural occurring thing. So like
it's a mystical being.
Yeah. So and it makes sense that mystical being would be like that she would transfer different emotions at different times onto that. So like the stag could mean multiple different things, but like, you know, at the same time I wonder, like I'm still thinking of like the man stag, the not friend shaped thing in the threesome or in the sex scene from this season. And like I wonder if it's if it's so metaphorical as to be just like we're going to use it in any way that we want to, right?
I was going to wonder, because I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe, again, seeing as Will is unsure of his own allegiances, arguably throughout seasons 1 and 2, I wonder if the meaning of the stag doesn't change for Will. And seeing as we only see the stag through Will's eyes, we see the different meanings that Will ascribes to the stag. And that basically we're seeing Will's transformation journey in his own storying of himself through the way that he stories the stag.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I'm very much looking forward to binging all of season 2 again before our
me too.
Because it's going to be like weeks and weeks, if not months, before we do our feedback episode. So very much looking forward to going through all this stuff and seeing exactly how it changes. Because
me too. I'm really excited to talk about that. To talk about season 2 as a whole with our very special guest.
Yes, very excited about that. We're not quite done yet, though. Because
no, of course not. We're not done.
As the screen fades to black, it then fades back up and we see clouds. And this is kind of unusual. Like normally we see a fade to black and we see credits start rolling, and credits do start rolling. And we have this, kind of classic, I don't remember the name of the tune, but it's a classic Silence of the Lambs track. And then we see an airplane across the sky. And we go inside the airplane where a airline attendant is offering in French, water, champagne, orange juice, and Hannibal grabs a glass of champagne, and
from the terroir of France, of Champagne, by the
exactly.
way, as we were talking about.
And as the camera pans over, we realize that he's sitting next to none other than Bedelia, who does not want any champagne from the terroir of Champagne.
And who is like weirdly positioned in her seat.
Kind of looking towards the camera. It's almost like she's kind of got the same picture as Gillian Anderson does in the in her FBI badge in X-Files. Yeah. She's got like that 3/4 profile. You know what I'm saying?
I love her.
So yeah, this sets us up to do some interesting things. I think it's kind of fascinating that Hannibal wanted to start a new life with somebody.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wanted it to be Will and Abigail, but like his second choice is Bedelia for some reason. And they've obviously been through a very similar thing as to what Hannibal and Will went through, maybe just not as powerful. And maybe like he valued Will's relationship, or maybe like you had an insight, I think, in our text messages that he whispered in the chrysalis, Will's chrysalis, and didn't like what came out. And maybe he likes or prefers now in his more monstrous state what he did to Bedelia as opposed to what happened with Will. But I think it's important that we note that he has to be with somebody.
This reminded me a lot of the episode where he gives shrooms to Abigail.
Sure.
And, you know, there was this third spot at the table that was set up, arguably for Will, and it's Alana that shows up. And he just kind of rolls with it. And I feel like this is sort of what happened too, where he set up that third spot, you know, on the plane with him. But it's not Will that showed up, it was Bedelia. And Hannibal literally spent a whole 2 seasons trying to convince Will to come to that third spot at the table. I cannot believe that he is just going to completely let go of Will. You know what I mean? He's wearing blue. He's wearing blue.
Literally wearing blue. Also, like the last time we saw Hannibal concerned about Bedelia was when he was going to kill her.
Yes.
When he
she had packed up and started a whole other life.
Yes. So
the same way that he did.
Exactly. And so the fact that he didn't kill her here, I think is very telling. This is what you've been wanting for a long time. you have so really wanted to see Hannibal and Bedelia kill together. So hopefully season 3, episode 1, you'll have the chance finally to.
If I can't have murder husbands, I will settle
murder Jillian's. It's fine.
Exactly. I will take murder Jillian.
I thought I was emotionally exhausted watching the show live with people. And then watching it a second time and taking notes was like as difficult, even being able to pause. And then last night watching it again with Autumn was a little bit less emotional because I think just, as exposure just reduces it. I feel like I have, I feel drained. Like
we've also been talking for 3 hours.
We've been talking for almost exactly 3 hours. No, 3 hours and 39 seconds, according to this counter on our recording software. So I don't have much to say about this episode that I think I haven't already said. What an absolute masterpiece of storytelling, and the culmination of just 2 seasons worth of work. It's so telling when you have writers who are clearly have a plan and are going about implementing it. And it's just astounding to me that anything gets made in this world, much less gets made well, because how difficult is something like this to pull off? And it's, how often do you see it? Like, how many other shows stand up there with Hannibal and do what Hannibal does? Like, there's not many, I promise. So,
yeah, honestly, I don't have much to add here. Like, it's just, I think we've over talked about this episode, right? And yet there are still things that like we haven't talked about.
Right.
I will say, so how about we just kind of like easily like ease out of this really emotional experience by just maybe taking a few minutes to talk about maybe some of my predictions, but also the things that I know about season 3, because I do know certain things about season 3 and I want to be like transparent with people.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I know that the first episode of season 3 is called Antipasto, and so I'm assuming that it has something to do with Italy, because like also you may or may not have like let something slip at one point where it was like the first time that we heard him speak Italian, and I was just like, oh my god, Matt's an Italian. So I have a feeling that maybe we're going to go to Italy. So that's what I think. I know that Alana's not dead because I've seen stills of her in season 3. And this I've known for a while, so like that's also why I wasn't particularly worried about Alana. I don't know about Abigail. I don't know if she survives this. I assume that Will does, because Hannibal without Will Graham in the show Hannibal, made by Brian Fuller, would just not be the same.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You know, just putting that out there. And until like a week ago, I did not know that Jack was going to survive, but I do know that he does because I've seen stills of him in season 3. So there you go. That's what I know.
Stay off Twitter.
It's not my fault that like I follow. It's not my fault, Jeremy. It's fate and circumstance. Twitter. No, actually, literally, it's from fate and circumstance that I saw it. But
it could be a flashback. You don't know.
No, because he has a beard.
He couldn't have a beard before. He's like 50 years old. He could have had a beard before then.
Yes, but no, but the beard is meant to represent like a certain ruggedness that he didn't have before. Before he was like this clean cut guy, and now he's like this rugged guy. Like it's part of his characterization. Maybe Bella is dead. We don't know, right? So like there has to be like this thing that shows that time has passed, and a beard is the way that a lot of people do that in TV shows. So he has a beard. Therefore, like when, it's the future. It's
like when women cut their hair.
Yes, exactly.
Now it's for real. My hair is short.
It's for real. Exactly. So there's that, and then what else? And I've also seen like pictures. Oh, predictions. Well, again, I'm assuming that Will is gonna. Is Hannibal gonna come back to see Will, or is Will gonna go to see Hannibal? I don't know. Which one can't let go the most is the question. Ooh, Will. Will is going to go see Hannibal. That's what I think is going to happen.
Listeners, I'm suffering. I just want you to know. Suffering and not so much silence.
Because I think that Will is always going to feel like he has to explain himself to Hannibal in some way. And so I think that there's a conversation that's going to happen, or that needs to happen, in my opinion. I hope Alana gets a girlfriend. That would be great. But yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like the way that I would really like the story to go is that they have to team up, right? Will and Hannibal for some reason, and that kind of forces them to like work together and to work out their issues. Kind of like, you know, there was only one bed. There's only one bed in this hospital. Like there's going to be only one bed in Italy. Like that's what's going to happen. Are you okay? Did I just break your brain?
Yeah, there's only one bed in Italy. It's great. I love it. I very much love it. That's one of my favorite joke constructions ever. So the fact that you just said the entire country of Italy is very hilarious. I love it.
In the entire country of Italy, there is only one bed,
and
Will and Hannibal are going to have to share it. Yeah, that's it. And I've seen stills of Hannibal and Bedelia dancing together, and it looks like a wedding. And I'm just like, oh, are they going to live as husband and wife? And I kind of love that. Yeah, there you go.
Those are all statements that you just made with your mouth that I cannot give any commentary on. And without further ado, we're going to move into our haiku section of the podcast.
Would you like to get us started?
Sure. This week I wrote, "A rare gift given, changes in the souls of men. Blood is all that's left."
Oh my God.
Your turn.
I painstakingly whispered through your chrysalis. You emerged without me.
That's the good stuff right there. I dig it. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to listen to the podcast, for continuing to join our Discord and build a small little community with us, talk about Hannibal, comment on our Spotify and presumably Apple, which I
Presumably, we have no clue.
actually never checked that, so probably should do that one day. Thank you for... I've said this a bunch, but every time we release an episode on Sunday, we get like a flood of like comments and stuff on Sunday morning. The fact that you guys like interrupt your day to put us on first thing just means so much to us. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. I guess that's it, huh? Any?
I mean, I guess, yeah. I guess this meal has come to an end.
Yeah. Just one last note to send your comments to us about season 2, about the podcast, about if you're watching along with this, if you have predictions of season 3 that you want to share, try not to spoil Mary on anything. I'll be reading everything first to make sure, but try your best not to spoil Mary on stuff.
Thank you.
Next week,
because that's also like the fun for you guys, right?
Yes.
That the whole reason why I'm careful with what I'm consuming from Hannibal is specifically to make the show more fun for everybody.
It's definitely fun for me. Definitely fun for me. And yeah, next week we'll have our feedback episode, so get stuff in. If you're listening to this as it comes out, you probably have till Wednesday or Thursday to do that. So make sure all of that stuff gets in pretty quick. And we have a special guest, and then we will start our coverage of season 3. Yay!
Yay! Okay. Thank you, everybody, and bon appétit.
Bon appetit.
Is it recording? Yes, it's recording. Woohoo!
All right.
I'm having my coffee.
Chrome, Scarlet. Let's record from Zencastr. Zencastr isn't muted, right? Nope, we're good on Zencastr.
Do we want to talk about 11-year-old watching Infinity Wars on the
sure.
the outtakes?
Yeah.
Or Daredevil. We need to talk about Daredevil.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Daredevil.
We're like 4 or 5 episodes into Daredevil since we last recorded.
Oh my god!
And it's so funny that you and I were like, obviously we watched I think the last time we talked, the first 2 episodes had aired, and the first episode was like a really weird like adjustment period, and the second episode was like, okay, I can kind of see what they're doing.
Yeah, it went from like no to maybe.
Yeah, and then all of this stuff came out about how like troubled the production was, and how even though like new writers took over, like they were only going to be able to write like 2 or 3 episodes, and it felt disjointed and everything like that. And like, I don't know, maybe just that set my expectations so low, but like it's been pretty good. Like I've kind of enjoyed with everything that I've been watching.
But there's been, I don't know if you remember, but right before it came out, they announced the second season, and they had Charlie Cox come out and say, we made a really big choice, blah, 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 blah. We don't know if it's going to work. It was risky. Like, they preemptively PR'd, basically, people, and they adjusted expectations, I think because they realized that people weren't going to like the first episode. And that I think people were expecting certain things of this show that it just wasn't going to deliver. And so it's like, it makes sense what you're saying, that our expectations were so low. But I don't know. I kind of love this season. And like all of the stuff that like journalists had been saying about how like it feels really disjointed and whatnot, like to a certain degree, but actually not that much. Like I kind of disagree that with that review, I can't remember which one it was, but there was one that was like, oh, like story threads come up and then get dropped, and I'm just like, so far all of the story threads have been like followed through. It's just that like you actually have to watch the show for the payoff. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting the times that they come out with double episodes, right? Because you can tell that they just don't trust in the first of the 2 that they released.
Yes.
So we had like the premiere, then the second episode, and the premiere was like super awkward, and then the second episode like kind of brought us back into it, and then most recently was the bank heist, and then like the episode with Muse, and like the bank heist was such a weird solo episode.
I love the bank heist. I will die on that hill. It was a great episode, and I'm very happy that they kept it. I don't care. I don't care. Come for me, Stubes.
It felt very much like like an issue in between runs of comic books. So like in comic books, you'll have like, part 1 of 5. And then like, somebody will take over for an issue, like a different writer or an artist, and like it won't connect to the previous thing, or maybe it does, but just like only in like a glancing kind of thought or conversation. And it doesn't necessarily lead to the next thing, but it's just like this kind of middle part episode. I always call them swimsuit issues because the X-Men are really, really good about like, oh, let's have like, we're all playing basketball in our swimming suits. Like we'll have a swimsuit day. I wish I was lying.
God,
that's true.
Can we please see Daredevil in a swimsuit?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's just one Google search away. Like you just turn off safe search and you can. But it felt very much like that. And then of course they followed it up with the stuff that like, is obviously part of the main season, which is this duality of Daredevil and Kingpin both being quote unquote born again, of embracing their monstrous selves, or being forced to kind of embrace their monstrous selves. And it's I don't know, I find the duality of that really interesting. Like I see people complaining that like we've dealt with Kingpin a lot in the Netflix series. I'm like, yeah, we have, but like also, I don't know, Daredevil's fought Kingpin probably 80,000 times in the comic book. So like, it doesn't necessarily bother me that we're, seeing the same villain, especially since it's like Vincent D'Onofrio, who is amazing.
Right? Like, how can you be upset about that? And I mean, you and I have talked about this, but like, I do find it difficult to see the Kingpin storyline as like within our current reality, within our current timeline.
Sure. Just
because like, I want to see like, comic book level, like comically villainous villains, and in this particular show, like what we're seeing is like, well, stuff that happens in reality, right? And it's just like, it's just, I find that to be challenging in a way. Like I don't want that from my comic book movies. Like I want like Thanos. I don't want Trump, right? Yeah. But that's a separate issue. On the other hand, like Kingpin and Daredevil are kind of like the two sides of the same coin, right? Like it's just one kind of needs the other in order to exist. And it's just, I don't know. I think that I don't know. And Vincent D'Onofrio, like how can you, anyway.
He's so good. Good. And like, again, just the back and forth of that duality, that same side of the coin of them both losing control of because Kingpin obviously has this political empire that he wants to run in an official capacity. He wants to separate himself from Vanessa and the business and the mob business, versus Daredevil, who wants to separate him. Matt Murdock wants to separate himself out from the mask and have that be something separate from him. And then both realizing like, oh no, this is part of who I am. I have to figure out a way to embrace it.
Exactly.
And then coming to that conclusion very violently, I think, is as we saw with Daredevil and Muse and Kingpin and whoever this other guy is, like whoever
Adam,
yeah. I
was like, that's Hannibal level shit. Like,
oh yeah. Keeping somebody in prison so that you can like feed them is a very strange situation.
Imagine if Will Graham had a boyfriend. Like, that's exactly what would happen to him, to that boyfriend. Hannibal would kidnap him. 100%.
Yeah, in the books, Will has a wife, and Hannibal is like kind of obsessed with Will's life. To that extent, so it's really interesting.
Of course, he is.
I think my biggest complaint is still like, if you go back to the Netflix series, it's so beautiful. Like it's just it's so like, because I went back and like, especially now with like newer TV and HDR and all this stuff, like the lighting is so, the contrast is so amazing, and you're just like, holy shit, this is so fucking, like it's comic book panels come to life, and you're just like, goddamn. And the Disney series isn't coming close to that. So
yeah, I know. I think that's my biggest issue too. I do wish that it was nicer, and like, come on, like just hire a good DP, like I don't know. It's just like, you have the money. Like I think that's the part that annoys me. Like, you have the money to hire somebody good, right? Like, I don't know.
It's difficult. I often wonder how like TV shows or video games or movies ever get made, because like from the page, even this episode of Hannibal, like from like reading the stuff that's on the page in the script and what was removed, it's so it needed to be removed, like it needed to be, but like getting the crazy artistic like development of the show from just dry words on a page it seems like absolutely impossible. Like it's just crazy. So yeah.
When I was younger, my life goal was to be a director, like a movie director or a TV show director. And I directed a couple of plays and a couple of like short student films and whatnot. And that is literally my passion. Like I love watching like looking at a text and being like, how do you bring this to life to tell the story that's on the page? Like I love that. It's just, anyway. I've
gotten a little bit of experience with that through my friend Judy, who helped us with the videos. He's helped me with videos throughout the years, because she develops scripts and does like short films and things like that. But she'll like the literal breakdown of like, okay, like blocking out a script and like this is like camera shot, this is like actually kind of taking it from script to visual medium is I just remember her showing me like some pictures of what she was doing and just being fascinated by it. It's like, that looks so cool.
In another life, maybe.
Yeah, same.
Not in this life.
Maybe one day you'll be the next Quentin Tarantino.
Maybe. I mean, you always hear of these people who like are late bloomers. Maybe I'm just a late bloomer.
Yeah. You can restart your life at like 40 or 50. Like plenty of people have done it, right? Like
maybe one day we'll see. Let's hope I'm as good as predicting that as I am at predicting Hannibal.
Yeah, because Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Hannibal.
Yes, let's get into it.
And the conclusion that I've drawn is that you are